6 minutes away.
Hello.
This is for punk lighting. Let it rip, boss. Our names are both in the show, but I will defer to him to start the music. You've got stories to tell, little Lenny.
I do. Oh, gosh. Do I?
Good morning. It's time for the Jeff and Janki Show.
Friday morning, man. Friday morning. And this being Hot Chick Friday, we've got a doozy for you. It's going to be a scorcher outside and it's a scorcher inside.
Only on Kaotic Radio.
We're sitting with Ariel, a dead ringer for the Little Mermaid.
All the way in Rancho Cucamonga.
This is in Rancho Cucamonga, center of the universe.
Just
also,
an hour from where you are.
2 miles away from where the Safaris at Studio Z, the Frank Zappa studio, recorded the surf classic Wipeout.
Wipeout.
2 miles away.
All right, I'm excited, man. It's like Hot Chick Friday, yeah.
Well, how amazing. The hottest day of the year. We have the hottest guest of the year.
Yes, the redheads are taking over the world.
It's Ginger Palooza here at the Jeff and Janki Show.
Ginger Hot Palooza.
The lovely Kristin Towers is joining us today.
Hello.
Welcome. You're bright and shiny this morning. You beat us here to the station.
This is depressing. She's close to Santa Monica, and she beat us to the station from 6 minutes away.
I'm a theater actor, so I have to be on time.
Oh, yes, yes.
Otherwise, there's a blonde in the role.
Yeah, exactly. I've got to be quicker than the blonde. But who isn't?
Oh,
Just kidding.
wow. Very sharp.
Thank you.
So-
that is sharp for this time of the morning.
You are a singer as well as a dancer.
I am.
You do everything.
And you're at least half Polish.
Yes, I'm a quarter Polish.
Quarter Polish. Okay,
Yes.
cool.
My
Wow.
father's Polish and Russian, and then my mom is shiksa white girl.
Wow.
I come from all of Europe.
So
I
Dad
represent-
horrified Bobcha by marrying a Shiksa.
No. At that time, it was like, yes, marry a shiksa. And especially because she was a movie star's daughter.
Hubba. Yeah, no, tell us. Tell us, your mom is the daughter of, will always be the daughter of?
Catherine Grayson. So for those that are under the age of 60, Catherine Grayson was my grandmother. She starred in Showboat and Kiss Me Kate.
Which was the musical retelling of Taming of the Shrew. It was on TCM about 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. So she was Kate
Wow.
in that, and she was seriously redheaded and feisty in that
Wow.
one. I've played the role too.
Well,
so that
did you really?
Yes.
Now, was Grandma Catherine around to see you play?
She never got to see me play that role. Actually, I opened the show on the 1 year anniversary of her passing away.
Wow.
A theater company that I had been working for decided that they wanted to do the show, and they wanted me to play the role as a memorial to her. So it was super cool. It was really neat.
Was this the Falcon / Gary Marshall Theater, or
No, this was actually at the Warner Grand, which is in San Pedro, which was built with all those other big movie palaces that Warner built during the 30s. And so it's this gorgeous Art Deco. It was built by the same people that built the Pantages, and it looks just like it. It just,
Wow.
Yeah, it just doesn't have the same kind of audiences because it's
unfortunately it's San Pedro?
yeah, but San Pedro, I love it. I've done a lot of theater there with another company called Little Fish too, and there's just a really neat arts collective out there. So I love that area. It's like a little vacation.
So is that the 605 or the 710?
I actually take the 405 to the 110, and it's where the 110 ends.
Wow.
Yeah.
So by the way, they shot Fight Club, Terminator 2,
Yeah.
Blade Runner. Wow.
Yeah, Gaffey Street is where the 110 ends. And then if you go just a little bit west of that, you're in PV, Palos Verdes, which is the most beautiful place in the world.
Isn't it amazing? You're next to San Pedro, which is like strip clubs and docks, and then suddenly you're in.
It's the biggest port in the world. When I worked on ships, I found that out, that we have.
Oh,
the
that's right. You were the singer on cruise ships, weren't you?
Yeah, I worked on ships for 3 years, and I would come in and out of there, and I learned so much about this port that was 20 minutes away from where I grew up, and I never really spent any time there. They're doing a whole overhaul right now of ports of call down there.
Oh, seriously?
I love going down there. I haven't been there in a while, but I love going down there.
Everyone
for lunch.
says that,
and get a big shrimp cocktail on the dock.
Well, unfortunately, all those restaurants are closing, and they're what they're doing is they're redoing that entire area.
Oh, they are. Okay.
And then they're going to reopen. Yeah, and they're putting a lot of money into it because it's now becoming more of a destination. And I think
that's terrible. That's what they're doing to Magnolia and Burbank. They're getting rid of all the places people come for.
I know.
To put in Starbucks and really expensive closed places.
I know. It's unfortunate because those are the things that kind of define where we live.
Those are the landmarks, you know?
Yeah, well, and it's happening in New York, too. I lived in New York for several years. I went to school there in Manhattan.
Wow.
Yeah, and you walk down those streets where you had these mom and pop places, and it's all
in the bodegas.
corporate.
You can't lose a New York bodega.
And in certain places like Queens and things like that, you still have more of that, but Manhattan is so expensive, and to be able to afford a store there, you have to be able to sell more than gum, you know?
You're not going to make your nut on gum.
I remember that candy store at Ports of Call. I remember going in there and getting all those exotic, the candy on necklaces.
I know. It just kills me because it's such a unique place, and people that would go there that hadn't been there in a while, they're like, oh my God, this is like a time capsule.
Yeah.
It's real nostalgic.
Ports of Call, if you want to see what LA or, Long Beach looked like in the 60s, 70s, 80s. Yeah. Ports of Call had like this timelessness.
Yeah, it really did. And as time went on, it got very Latino and the most amazing Latino food and music. They would have live music down there.
But the stores remain the same. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, and now it sounds
Ceviche.
It sounds like it's being. I mean, when you look at what they did to the Queen Mary, you used to be able to have lunch there. You'd have
now
brunch
you have to pay
Sundays.
to go on.
Now you have to pay to go on. I mean, it used to be you could cover Ports of Call and then walk on the Queen Mary free. And then when Disney bought it, they built that fence between the Queen Mary and Ports of Call.
I know. It's true. I really do love being down there, though. Something about it. I know it's part of LA, but it doesn't feel like it. And I'm somebody who loves to travel. And since I've had children, I haven't been able to travel as much as I did in my 20s when I was, I have like that wanderlust. I want to be everywhere. So
did it break your heart?
What?
When you give the cruise ship life, when you can no longer open your hotel room door and see an animal made out of a towel staring at you?
Well, or just wake up in a different country every day. Wow. Like when I was, we'd work in Central and South America and go through the Panama Canal and things like that, and I just miss that.
Wow. Are you ever going to get back to it, you think?
No, that's really a very young person's gig.
Well, you're a very young person.
Well, I am. I'm not that young, though. I have kids now, and it was good. I did it. I lived out of a suitcase for like 10 years.
How many shows do you do? You're on a cruise ship. And when do they have the shows? Do they do shows? How many days a week do they do the shows when you're on?
Like on a 7-day cruise, you probably do 4 or 5 nights of shows, and then the other nights are, they don't have like a formal night. We usually did shows on formal or informal nights, not casual nights. And depended on the cruise. Like I remember one that was my favorite where we went up the Mississippi and parked in New Orleans. Wow. And we were a floating hotel for 3 days. And when you're a floating hotel, you don't have to work.
Wow.
So we would be off partying and come home.
You'd be
to
on
the
Bourbon
hotel.
Street like everyone else.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's what your 20s is for, Bourbon Street, right?
Wow. Yeah. I was there 2 months ago.
Oh, my God.
I went back in my 20s for one night.
Yeah, I would love to take my kids there now.
No, you wouldn't.
Well, during the day.
Yeah,
when it's still.
Here's how mommy gets the beads.
Yeah, I loved doing all of that. And I've been to all the Caribbean islands. I've been to Alaska and back. That was also amazing because I hate the heat because I'm an albino. Yeah, so I would.
And well, you should.
So how cold was it in Anchorage?
Well, we never went fully to Anchorage, but we would do San Francisco up through Seattle and Canada to the Inside Passage. Okay. So we would be in like Ketchikan and Sitka and all of that and then come back. though that was my favorite. We did that run like 10 times.
Seattle's beautiful. How long were you in Seattle?
We would, well, I actually have an ex from Seattle, so I've spent a lot of time there. But the ship would be in each city for one day.
Wow.
You know?
Okay, so you had one day to do like, the Pike Place and everything else.
Exactly. You get off and walk around and take cabs in those days.
Wow.
We didn't have Ubers and stuff yet, you know. I think about that now, how easy everyone has it. We didn't have it that easy then. So
How'd you get your SAG card?
how did I get my SAG card? I think I got it. Well, I did commercials and stuff as a kid. So I've been
tell us
SAG.
about that.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, my whole family's in the business, so I think I started as a fetus on camera.
Wow.
And my dad actually worked at an agency for a while because as actors, we have to do things to eat sometimes, and it's not always acting. So he was a voiceover agent, and I was a client of that agency as a
Really?
child.
You did cartoon voices as a kid?
He did. He actually did voices forever, but he also was an agent.
Was this Kazarian Spencer?
No, it was the Jack Rose agency.
Wow, he was with Jack Rose. Okay, I've heard of Jack Rose. Wow.
And he was actually an agent for the Jack Rose agency. So he ran their voice department, and I was in the commercial department. I was a cute redheaded kid with freckles on like 5 million commercials when I was little.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah, it was really fun. So that's probably how I got my SAG card. And then I started working and doing like featured stuff when I was in, the 18 to look younger.
Right, good girl, smart.
Yeah, I didn't have an easy adolescence. I was kind of moved around a lot between family members because I was, acting like a teenager.
Of course.
So I lived in Miami for a couple of years with my grandfather, and my grandfather was also an actor, and he did movies, and he...
Can we get his name?
His name was Johnny Johnston, and he was married to Katherine Grayson, and they had one child, and that was my mom.
Wow, and was mom an actress?
She was. She worked in Vegas and did some, showgirl... they did a show called The Name's the Same, and it was, she was Katherine Grayson Jr. basically in this show, and it was with a bunch of other Pat Reagan was in it, and Jerry Lewis's children.
Gary.
Yeah. So my
Cut out of the will, by the way. Gary left it all to his adopted daughter.
I know.
What a-
Yeah, not the nicest dude in the world. So yeah, my mom grew up in the business, and then I grew up in it, and my kids. So the cool thing about my life is that I'm married to someone who's not an actor.
Oh, you married a civilian.
Yes, I did. I married a civilian he's an artist and he's an arts educator, but he is not an actor. And I had to go through my 20s to figure out that you don't marry another actor.
No, the neuroticness must have been off the chain.
Gosh, that's just disaster.
Well,
right
it's just
there.
too much. It's too much ego. It's too much friction. And my career, what matters.
You would be spitting coffee every morning all over Drama Log.
Exactly. And so that's the good thing is that I've wanted my kids, even though they've grown up artistic and with their mom working, and because I didn't work for 7 years, and when I went back, they don't know a time that their mom hasn't been working.
Wow.
So it's been good, but they're still always the priority. My husband is home with them. If I'm at rehearsal at night, my husband's home. So they've had more of a normal life.
You got a good balance going.
Yeah, just trying to keep it. But I think it's really important that as a woman, my daughters are watching their mom do what she went to school for, what she's always done, what makes her happy, because so many women kind of give that up.
Supplement, yeah.
Your children have to be the priority, but that is part of raising them, is being an example, I think. And we don't live in a world where women can just stay home anymore. It's just, and some do, but there's a lot of compromise. And I think losing yourself is not exactly healthy for your kids. And I knew for me, it was like, I need to be happy. I need to be doing what I do. So.
And 3 little girls. I'm really impressed.
Yeah. Yeah, and they're not so little anymore.
Oh, little-ish.
And I'm getting to the point where it's like I'm hanging out with them now,
But you're not quite in they're not yet in the slamming the door, I didn't ask to be born phase.
No. I mean, a
Thank
little
God.
bit, because they're, 14, 12, and 11. So we're getting into that a little bit. But straight A students. I mean, I'm very blessed. I'm very
Are
blessed.
any of them actresses?
Yes. So they all have done commercials all their lives. They've all, worked. My middle daughter is this musical theater girl like me. And she, this last year, was my understudy in an equity contract.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I do shows at Theater West. And I do these they're like youth shows. And they're really cool. They're written by one of the producers of Airplane.
Oh, hold on. Zucker? One of the Zuckers or one of the Abrams?
Lloyd
Abrams?
Schwartz. Lloyd Schwartz.
Lloyd Schwartz, the son of Sherman Schwartz.
Yeah, so
Lloyd Schwartz created, I didn't know that Lloyd Schwartz produced Airplane.
he was one of the producers.
38 years ago yesterday it came out, by the way.
I know, I saw that.
That's right. I saw that. It was all over Facebook.
And Barbara Mallory is his wife, and she was the one in the movie with, "Would you like this flower on behalf of religious consciousness?"
Really?
That's her. So they are my producers that I've been working with for 2 years.
Wow.
And this last
That's
show,
amazing.
they were like, "Do you think your daughter would want to be the understudy?" Because she's, and I'm little, so she's little. And it was so great because she got the experience of being the lead of a show and having to jump in with like one rehearsal. It was great.
Wow.
Yeah, it was great for her to train in that way.
That's everybody's got to have an understudy in case something happens, right?
Yeah.
And you can't make.
Well, and I was
it's a
doing
live
other
show,
jobs. It's a live show, and I was doing other gigs and other shows because it was an 8-month contract. So
Whoa,
it's like,
wow.
yeah, you're gonna,
Oh, definitely gonna have to.
you're gonna book
understudy.
other stuff or get sick or whatever it is. So yeah, and some shows don't have understudies, and they've had to cancel performances because they don't. But with this, because this is an equity contract, they're like they have to have it.
But that is Lloyd Schwartz, Schwartz's kid, right?
That's right.
Wow.
Yeah. So I've worked with him. I've done two full contracts with them, and I love them. They're great
Wow,
people.
but the Lloyd Schwartz was also, people forget, he was also a writer on Brady Bunch and all these other
That's
shows in
right.
his own
And
right.
then when the Brady Bunch movie came out, he was the executive producer.
Executive
of that.
producer.
Oh wow! I didn't know he was.
And then he also wrote the Brady Bunch musical, which ran at
That's
Theater
r-
West forever and was a huge hit for them.
And I believe Conan O'Brien's sidekick played either Peter or Bobby Brady for the longest
I think
time.
So
Yeah.
you're
I
right.
didn't know Conan had children.
No, the chubby guy, the sidekick.
His sidekick.
Andy something.
Andy Richter.
Oh,
Yeah.
Andy Richter. Andy
Yeah.
Richter.
Andy Richter, I think, played Peter Brady or Bobby Brady, and you
That's
know what
so
I mean?
funny in the musical.
Yeah.
That's really funny. Yeah. And people I've worked with had been in that show, and I just became a member of Theater West. What happened
Congratulations,
was...
by the way.
Thank you. Well, we had a 99-seat thing. I don't know if you've heard about what has happened to theater in Los Angeles, but...
It's going down. I mean,
and I don't want to get too into it, but basically, if you're an equity actor, you had this plan where you could do 99-seat theater without the benefit of contract.
right, like a black box, that sort of thing. Theater.
Right. Anything 99 and under could be under this. And there's some beautiful theaters that are 99.
The world famous 99 Cent Theater, the Seat Theater, the Acme, and all these other places.
Acme, there, all like Boston Court in Pasadena was under that plan. And it's a plan that we only had in Los Angeles. And the reason we have it is we have the second largest amount of equity actors outside of New York City. So all these people were moving to LA in the 50s and 60s to do film. And they were missing being on stage, which is the heart of our craft. Theater is the lifeblood of an actor. Yes, there are some people that have never done theater. I have a hard time understanding them because to me, getting on stage and like I'm currently doing an Arthur Miller play, All My Sons, and I'm playing one of the leads of that. And
Which son are you, Biff?
I'm actually the sweetheart of the son that died and the son that's still alive.
Ah, yes.
I play Anne, and I mean it's 2.5 hours of very difficult dialogue. And
Arthur Miller, man, not exactly a million laughs.
That's terrifying because I was terrified back in the 80s. We had a place called the Gallery Theater here in Ontario.
oh yeah, I remember that.
And I was in, I went to every rehearsal, and then the first performance of Fiddler on the Roof, I did that. I was terrified. I couldn't,
that exciting moment before curtain call when you were
I
fired.
couldn't do another show after that. I barely made it through, man. It was just, even though it sat like, 45, 50 people.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Producer said, Jeff, the farmhand doesn't have any dialogue, but we won't need you for this performance.
Oh my God, he did reversal on the dance move on the.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a whole different.
Yeah. Oh, it really is. And it really separates the men from the boys.
Oh, it sure does.
Have you ever done a play at the Grove in Upland?
I have not done. One of my friends directs there quite often, and I want to do something out here. It's hard because
It's a really nice theater.
I know, and also the Lewis Family Playhouse out here.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and I have a lot of friends who've worked out there. I'm actually auditioning for something out there.
Really?
Yeah.
Pat and I went to. Remember the one we saw, Robert? Sneaky Old Time. It was right by the Santa Monica Airport.
God! What is that great little theater by the Santa Monica?
The Ruskin.
The
Yes,
Ruskin.
the Ruskin.
Oh my God,
Well,
I
by
love
the
that
way,
place.
Is
And
that
that's like
named after?
2 blocks from me, and I've never worked there. I need to get in a show there. So.
I'm hoping it's named after. There was a great old time actor. I would see him at SAG every now and then.
Yeah.
I was wondering if it was named after Joseph Ruskin.
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think
you know who I'm
it's-
talking about? He was like bald with a beard.
I do. I think it's somebody else. I think it's the person that started that theater, but I could be wrong. I don't know enough about it, and I should, because all the theaters, like 100% of the theaters, are in North Hollywood or Hollywood,
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
I live on the
Off
west
of
side.
Magnolia and
Right. Well,
There's the Falcon, aka Gary Marshall Theater.
right, which is a great theater, and and now they're doing full contracts there, which is really nice.
Oh.
The theater wasn't working as a theater for a while, where actors could work.
Yeah,
and so
yeah.
now it's come back, and so it's great. And the stuff there, actually, someone that I was just in my show with, the one that Lloyd Schwartz produced, he was in a forum there. A funny thing happened
yeah,
at
on the way to
forum.
the You know, I know the original blonde slave girl from the Richard Lester movie.
Yes.
I'm blanking on her name. She was on Batman. She was on Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
That was the tall girl, right?
The tall blonde
Yeah.
Amazon. Yeah,
Yeah.
She was like 6 foot, man.
She still is. I mean, I was impressed. She did, besides doing the original Forum, she's in the Linda Carter pilot for Wonder Woman. She's the first Amazon you see
Oh
who
my
finds
gosh.
Lyle Wagner lying on the beach.
That's amazing.
And,
Yeah.
I mean, just statuesque. You know,
I've played Felia in that,
Hubba
the
hubba.
dumb one,
Wow.
and it's like one of my favorite roles. I've done it 3 times.
You
and
ever played the tall blonde Amazon?
no, because I'm 5 feet tall. I will never
Aw.
play a tall anything.
Oh,
I'm really, really
No
short.
matter how high we pump her heels.
Exactly. I'm always cast in these roles that are usually played by tall women, and they're just like, oh, but she's funny. Okay, throw her in there.
oh.
It's kind of what I've had to do my whole life, is like show up and be really talented, because I'm never what they're
Mission
looking
accomplished.
for. Well, I'm never what they're looking for physically, especially for a role like that. So
Well, that's another thing. You can always look taller on film than stage because it.
right,
You know.
you can't pretend. My grandmother,
Yeah.
when she did films with like Howard Keel, he was very tall.
I interviewed him. He was very tall.
He
And
was
that-
very tall.
That what a beautiful morning voice. That was his real voice.
Oh yeah, it was gorgeous, and they
Wow.
were very good friends. I'm friends with his daughter, Leslie Keel. We went to each other's birthday parties.
Did
We're
you
still
really?
friends on
Leslie
Facebook.
Keel?
Yeah, and my grandmother would sometimes they'd have to film things at an angle because she was 5'2", and
Your
he was
mom was that little?
my grandmother.
grandma.
yeah,
Sorry,
yeah,
no, that's what I meant.
yeah.
Sorry.
She was
you-
really tiny, and my
because
dad is too. Yeah.
Well, but you know what? This is one of the great things about your dad. Your dad is an old school character actor. He got a SAG card on a movie that used to run in Detroit on Friday nights. We had a show called Scream Theater. And like once a month, they would show this crazy 60s black and white movie called Terrified. Your dad was the opening victim.
He was.
The opening victim who he's buried in concrete.
Yep, he
and-
is.
Oh my God,
buried,
that's-
he's buried
talk about
alive, and
terrifying.
he's screaming.
Yeah, he's screaming. His voice goes hoarse.
One of my most vivid memories of my childhood is I was sick one day, and I was in my parents' bed, and my dad wakes me. He's like, "When my movie's on, you gotta see it."
He woke up to what's
They were
terrified.
playing it at like the late night, and this is before you could on demand click a button. You had to
Right.
if it was on, you watched
You
it.
had to watch it.
Yeah.
This is pre-Amazon Prime.
Right, it's a very pre, and he called. He woke me up so that I could watch it. I remember,
Wow.
What
and
did
I
you-
was like, "This is gross, Dad. I'm watching you be buried alive. Yeah, I think that was his first professional film gig.
Wow.
He started in theater, and he actually lies. He started in radio in New York when he was 5 years old. He was a radio actor.
Wow, amazing.
So that's and then he moved to Los Angeles with his mother. His mother divorced his father when he was 12, and he moved to LA, and he started working in theater, and really training on stage. And he's instilled the love for the craft and going through the process in theater.
Wow.
Yeah.
But your pop was also one of the original Ferengis on Star Trek The Next Generation.
He was.
Did you ever visit him on set?
No, I visited him on set when he played Karg in Masters of the Universe.
Wow.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's
He's Karg in Masters of the Universe. With that movie is stolen by Meg Foster.
Yes. Oh, she was fantastic. She was so sweet too. Wow. Really sweet on the set.
I ran into Frank Langella on the set of the President Johnson film.
Oh, you told me that, sir. He said,
Yes,
watch where you're going, imbecile.
I walked up to him. I go, your role in Skeletor was so badass. I love your
so
costume.
good.
He got up out of his chair, shook my hand, and said,
"Get back to Extras Holding."
And he said, "Thank you. That's a great compliment. No one's ever told me that." he was honored. Like he got up out of his chair and shook my hand. He's a tall guy.
Oh,
man.
so tall and very lovely too. Like he was so good to my dad on set. And I remember being in middle school and being on set for that and being at some of the night shoots. And that movie is notorious for being very over budget.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And I was there for one of these huge, like, fire scenes that took hours and hours to set up, and they got one shot at it.
One
and
shot.
I was there.
Yep, one shot deal.
So,
did you meet Billy Barty or
oh yeah,
Dolph Lundgren?
Billy Barty was a friend of my dad's because my dad did McDonald's commercials for 17 years.
Oh my God.
He was Captain Crook on all the McDonald's commercials.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Wow.
So,
Filet-O-Fish sandwich.
yeah.
Oh my God.
100%. He was also Give a Hoot, Don't Pollute.
Your dad was Woodsy Owl?
Woodsy Owl.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so he was a lot.
Talk about character acting.
Yeah, big time. And he was the older Benjamin in Benjamin Button for Brad Pitt.
For David Fincher.
Yeah.
Wow.
So he must have had life cast taken all the time for all that makeup and stuff.
All the time. And he also when he did the motion capture for Benjamin Button, it was the first of ever happening. So when they won the Academy Award, I know they had done motion capture before, but not with that particular form.
Right.
And so when they showed it on the Oscars, because they won the Oscar for Best Digital Effects, and they showed my dad and then Brad Pitt and then how they married their faces together. Wow. It was really cool.
Wow.
Yeah. I was like, Brad Pitt's my dad.
That was like the groundbreaking effect.
It really
when
was.
It started taking off.
It was. He worked for 6 months in New Orleans on that movie because
that's great.
Because when they had originally written the film, it didn't include Katrina, and then Katrina happened.
Hurricane, yeah.
And then they incorporated Katrina into the story because they couldn't do a movie in New Orleans taking place beginning in the modern day without.
You'd have to, yeah.
You'd have to talk about it.
Yeah.
So anyway, my dad was actually there during cleanup and all of that.
Wow.
And he really loved New Orleans. It's like got a special place in his heart now because he was shot there for so long.
It's trippy because I could still, when I was there 2 months ago, seeing all the old buildings. Some houses are untouched. And there'll be like hospitals and stuff that just blown out and just fenced off and places that are just still abandoned there.
I know. It's such a shame. And they're sitting ducks because the city is low. It's below sea level.
Yes.
So I'm hoping that the infrastructure has been improved because I keep hearing every year, like I was doing a show in Nashville this last year. I did a show called Part of the Plan, which is the Dan Fogelberg musical.
Are you serious? The music of Dan Fogelberg?
Yeah. So it's a really interesting show. It's not like a story about Dan Fogelberg. It's similar to how
Mamma Mia? Or,
it's similar to how Mamma Mia was created, except it's not silly at all. It's very, like, Mamma Mia is very light and fun. This is, while there's moments of light and fun, it takes place during Vietnam. It takes place during when his music was written.
Christmas Auld Lang Syne then, right?
Yes.
Wow, that's a great song.
It's such a great song. The show incorporates 20 songs of his. And so I was in 2 staged readings of it in Los Angeles and then a workshop off-book reading, off-book production. And then I was asked, I was one of a couple of people from LA to be asked to go to the Nashville world premiere. Wow. And we did a fully staged, I mean, everyone was from Broadway, lighting, everything, Broadway caliber. And I worked with Lynn Taylor Corbett, who is she was a Tony-nominated director for Swing on Broadway. Wow. She was the original choreographer for Footloose, the movie.
Really? The movie?
Yeah, she's amazing.
Wow.
And so
real Footloose, right?
Yeah, the real Footloose. Yeah, not the remake.
The Kevin Bacon one.
Yeah, the Kevin Bacon one.
The one that made money.
So she, anyway, got to work with her, and the show is fantastic. And Nashville was a perfect place to do the world premiere. And they're in negotiations for the Broadway production right now. So
wow,
it's pretty cool.
What character were you?
I played about 17 different characters. I was part of a core group of like character people, and I was everything from a teenager to a Mexican prostitute. So it was super fun. And you can't beat his music. His music is
man.
Not only were the melodies amazing and rich, and then you hear it with like a full band and all this orchestration, and it's incredible.
You just hear all the layers.
All the layers, and how they also combined songs and put songs over each other, which was really cool. But also just his lyrics. His lyrics were phenomenal. I mean, we're talking like poetry, and a lot of it it was kind of cool to be doing it at this time in our kind of divided country, because
he passed away like 5 years ago, you know?
A little bit over that. I think it was in the 90s. He had cancer and he was young. He was only in his 50s. And his widow is very involved in the creation of the show. It's 2 women who are both film and TV writers from Los Angeles. They were listening to the radio and were like, we need to make a show about this. Wow. And so I've played every female role. It's been an amazing journey to be on. And
wow, that's really exciting, actually, you know?
Yeah, and to be doing the show that's a protest show. Now, it's not a protest show, but in the show, we're doing protest music that he wrote about Vietnam, but it's taking place during Vietnam time, but you could take any of that music out and put it about now, you know?
I'm thinking of that hilarious petition. They have a petition going around to keep Creedence Clearwater music out of Vietnam movies, because it's in every Vietnam movie you've ever seen.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah. So yeah, it was really there's a song he wrote called "Voice for Peace," and we do that song.
You don't hear that one on the radio.
No, there's some of the songs you do hear, like "Old Lang Syne" and things like that, but then some of them were his more rare stuff, and they're just so good. Leader of the Band is in our show.
Leader of the Band is so damn sad. What a great song.
So good.
Wow.
So yeah, I've been very, very lucky to be a part of that. And I think the show's really special, and I think it's gonna go, and I think the world is gonna finally know what Dan Fogelberg was. Because people know who kind of lived through that era, but people that are younger don't know his music, and then they hear it and they're like, "Oh my gosh, this is so good."
Because you'll hear like same old Auld Lang Syne on the Christmas channel every,
right,
you know.
Right, exactly. And they really played that up in the show. There's like snow falling, and we're walking through the streets, and it's a really beautiful story. So I hope you guys get to see it. I don't want to blow any part of it because it's actually like a really twisty, turny plot, and people are blown away. So, yeah, I'm very happy to have been a part of it.
Very nice.
Yeah.
But let's get back to your father's Masters of the Universe.
Yeah.
One, the interesting thing about Malcolm Golan, about Canon Pictures' Masters of the Universe, it's the last time you can see classic Whittier. Whittier was rocked by the Whittier-Nero's earthquake the year Masters of the Universe came out. And a lot of the locations you see in the movie, which are used as sets, were completely destroyed.
Wow.
So if you want to see old school Whittier, check this out next time it's on Sci-Fi or something.
Those were those scenes where they were coming to attack, and they would go attack that neighborhood, and you could see all the like damaged buildings and stuff. So it's like they didn't have to build.
Was
sets.
that like it was in 1989? I think.
Yeah, it was 87. But yeah,
87.
Yeah.
7 was the earthquake.
Right. Whittier Narrows was October that year.
Okay.
And
because Whittier is still like you go to that little downtown. It's so cute and
you know what? It captures that era.
it does.
But a lot of those buildings, when good old Karg and company are chasing Dolph Lundgren around the streets, a lot of those locations are gone. Like City Hall collapsed
so
and all this.
Sad.
You know,
it's really sad.
Wow.
Yeah.
But as a kid, that must have blown your mind to be on this amazing. You know,
It was to watch Dolph Lundgren work. And
did you ask him what his process was?
no, I was so blown away just by watching them set up all the pyrotechnics because there were like 100 people working on that set.
And that's green screen.
Lots of explosions.
This was 2 years before CG.
Right. A lot of what I witnessed was not green screen. There were people on flying cables coming out, and explosions flying from explosions.
Chelsea Fields, I think Chelsea Field, Scott, Quantum Leap guy. Quantum Leap guy's wife was in that movie.
Okay, yeah. That makes. Is she blonde?
Yes.
Yes, I remember there was and then Meg with the eyes.
Meg Foster with the eyes.
Beautiful. Yeah. And she was very sweet.
That was Evil Lynn, right?
Evil Lynn.
Yes. I loved her costume.
Yeah. So that was fun because I would like go to the store and there'd be like a toy of my dad, you know?
Yeah.
It was always interesting growing up. I would be watching Saturday morning cartoons and my dad would be either a voice on one of the cartoons because he was on so many cartoons or in the commercials and sometimes both. Sometimes I'd be watching a TV show, hearing my dad's voice, and then the commercial would be my dad. So crazy, you know?
That's I have friends, Michael Bell and his wife Victoria do that a lot. He was also the replacement voice, I think, for De Niro on something, and you could hear him doing the TV swearing, because De Niro's not going to come in and reloop Heat or something.
No, gosh, no, yeah.
Wow.
It's amazing. Yeah, I had just a very interesting, and then I went to school for musical theater in New York. I went to AMDA, the American Musical and Dramatic Academy. I grew up here, but I wanted to train in New York because I'm really a musical theater girl.
You wanted to be legit.
Yeah. And so we had an entire 2-week section on learning about my grandmother.
Wow.
Which was like, this is so weird. And I'm going to school with kids from Ohio and Idaho and, who they did their local community theater and their high school theater. And I'm coming from literally Hollywood royalty. And it didn't even dawn on me. It's never been a thing because it's always been my life. So it wasn't like, I'm Hollywood royalty. I never thought of it. And people would tell me, they're like, do you understand where you're coming from? And I'm like, I guess.
Did you say I'm going to go tour the Statue of Liberty in the Empire State Building? I'll be back when Grandma's done.
Exactly. I'm going to go work at this pizza place because I don't have any money. I mean, truly, nobody paid for my stuff. I had student loans and worked.
Well, they charged Catherine Hall's granddaughter student loans.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, I worked my butt off. I've always been like that. I don't know. My daughters are watching me still do that, and I think it's healthy.
It is. I mean, you know what I mean? That's interesting. So it's legit the way you did it.
Yeah, and I'm still doing it. I'm still, I do theater that doesn't necessarily pay anything because I grow as an artist. And then when those big film roles or whatever come along, I'm ready. I'm not I'm ready to audition and my chops are up because that's really important as an actor. That's like saying to a marathon runner, I know you haven't run in 10 years, but go do 30 miles. You can't do that. You've got to keep that fire going. So yeah. And so that's why I do so much theater. People are always like, God, you do a lot of theater. I'm like, yeah, I do.
How many days on that movie, Sing for Your Supper? How long did you work on that set?
A couple of days. It was super fun.
I'm going to Sing for Your Supper as we speak.
You got Bodie Elfman. He's the lead singer, right?
He was the lead actor, and he sang in the film. He's not supposed to sing well, so that worked in his favor because he's not a singer.
He's got the throat, laryngitis, right?
Yeah.
And so,
but is he Danny's kid or is he the other Elfman's kid?
No, he's older than Danny.
Yeah, he's Jenna's brother.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Jenna Elfman. Yeah.
Yeah. And he's very sweet. It was a really wonderful shoot because I got to sit and really watch them work. And it was like a fantasy. So we were like all these poor, and then all of a sudden we start dancing on tables and doing fan kicks and stuff. It was super
So what kind of stuff was Jeff Blumberg doing? Was he dancing or singing or he played the policeman?
Yeah, he was. He was. He was great in that. And I had another friend, Joey. I'm trying to remember Joey's last name, but we knew each other from way back, and we were working on that set together.
Wow.
You know, most of my stuff is theater, so when you look at my IMDb, you're like, huh? Because I'm a theater girl. That's really what I do.
But this was like a music. This was kind of like a play, but that's a music. But
it was a musical fantasy
movie.
film.
Yeah,
like it was like they kind of escaped the depression by going into a musical fantasy, which is how the entire country escaped depression.
What studios did you go? Because the sets look really phenomenal.
We shot in like a big warehouse downtown that they created the whole city in.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was super fun. I think sometimes it's cheaper for companies to do that than to actually be on big, like Paramount.
Big giant studio lot.
Yeah, because then you're paying the salary of all the security and all, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think sometimes they like to build off-site. I mean, at least they were shooting in California because God knows that hasn't been happening.
Yeah.
So,
That's terrible.
yeah. So often I'm up for things where I'd have to travel, So it's nice when they're actually filming. And that is very new because when I was growing up and my dad was constantly working, everything shot here. They would say like, you're going out to the coast from New York because you were.
To me, there's nothing more exciting when you do an out of town movie. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. I love the idea of it, but the thing about runaway production is what they call it,
right,
is that it's not just the actors, it's everybody.
Everybody's replaceable. Yeah. I mean, it always shocked me when Canada was basically allowed to take over in the 80s.
Yeah.
We never came back.
No, I remember there were marches and all of that. And it's because they had reason. They had cheaper taxes and cheaper labor to be able to pay. But it's starting to come back. California is giving a lot of incentives to producers to film here. So.
Wow. But I mean, the terrible thing is when it got so bad. I did a book on a TV series. One of my books was on a TV series.
Oh, that's cool.
And what happened is when they were doing later TV movies and stuff, they were denying actors from California entrance into Canada for a role that could Austin Stoker tells a terrible story. Austin Stoker starred in John Carpenter's Assault in Precinct 13, which was the first movie to put Carpenter on the map.
Okay. Okay.
He was turned away when he was doing the Lawrence, I'm blanking on his name. He was doing the remake.
Wow. And he wasn't allowed to go because he was from California?
They wouldn't let him into Canada. He flew all the way out there and they wouldn't let him in because even though it was a cameo role because he was the star of the original.
Right.
They wouldn't let him in because it was a role that could easily be played by a Canadian.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, and it's not just the actors too. It's like all the people on set and the craft service and everybody is affected by that. So that's what Hollywood is. We're supposed to be the place where the stuff is made.
Exactly.
So last year, though, I read that there were more films made, or there was more filming done in Atlanta than anywhere else in the country.
Ouch.
Especially car chase scenes. When you're it's easier to pay off to do chase scenes and stuff in LA as far as blocking off.
Sure, and there's just more open space in
Georgia.
There's
more open space.
Yeah, we were actually, my husband and I were like, because if you move there, you can actually start booking a lot of stuff.
You could pull permits from cities, downtown.
But it's hard for me to leave LA. I always say, I'm going to leave, I'm going to go. And then I'm like, nah, it's my home. And it's weird to be a theater actor in LA because, and especially having grown up there, because everyone's a transplant from somewhere else.
Yeah.
When you live and work in LA, I'm like, very often I'm the only LA resident or like LA native in any cast I'm in. Everybody came from somewhere else.
But you were literally born and raised here.
Born and raised, went to Hollywood High Performing Arts.
Did you?
Wow. Yeah.
You wanted to name your most famous classmate?
Maybe Jay Ferguson. I graduated with Jay Ferguson. He was on Evening Shade at the time.
Wow.
And he was just playing the lead in some TV show, something biblical that got canceled. But yeah, he was on The Real O'Neills. He was the dad on that.
Yeah. Wow.
I did the pilot for that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, he was the dad on that.
Yeah.
He's a neat guy.
We filmed in Pasadena. Pasadena's got a lot of cool places.
Oh, yeah.
And we did that.
I filmed there, too.
It was like a bingo hall. Their city hall was there, and then there was in the auditorium of some church, and it looked, there's a lot of cool locations.
Yeah, so I graduated with him. Oh, and Rose McGowan was in my graduating class.
Wow, Rose McGowan.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And I won like Best Actress and Best Singer and blah, blah, blah. And they were always like the pretty ones, and I was the actress.
Wow, that's nice.
That's always how it's been. But yeah, so then I'm also a director. I'm directing a show coming up.
Tell us.
I direct a lot of musical theater. I directed Sweeney Todd a couple years ago.
Oh, did you really?
The barber.
Did you appear in it as well?
I have done Sweeney in the past, but I just directed this production, and it won the Stage Raw Award for Best Musical of the Year. So it was I did a little something different with it. I made everything come from the standpoint of the beggar woman.
Wow.
So it was, and she never left the audience because it was kind of almost in the round. It was 3/4. She would like watch the show and be in and out of it. It was really neat. So it was really cool. And then, so I'm right now directing, starting next month, a workshop production of Scarlet Letter, the musical. So I'm really excited about it. It's written by Christopher Raymond, who is a huge...
The hell it is. Nathaniel Hawthorne.
Well, Nathaniel Hawthorne, I'm talking about the music. The music, he took it and adapted it, and it's a great piece. I've actually been in it.
You're pale, redheaded. Obviously, you're Hester Prynne all over.
No, I wasn't, because it's a rock musical, and I'm not a rock singer.
Meg Foster, is one of the famous Hester Prynnes.
Yes, I did.
She did it for PBS. Mm-hmm. I thought she was one of the hottest Hester Prynnes ever.
Oh yeah, no, I was, because it's a musical, so they needed my high voice, because I've sung Kristin and Phantom and stuff. I have a big old high soprano voice, and this show is a rock musical. It's a rock version.
Really?
Yeah, it's really cool, and I think it's very appropriate for where we're at in our society right now. I think the same stuff continues on a cycle, and so we're gonna play up a little bit of like the female empowerment part of it.
Really?
Yeah.
All right, well, this is always the big debate. Arthur Dimmesdale, hero or villain?
I don't know. I think he's a little bit of both, which is, I think, what makes him interesting. I think he's human, and I think he's he does just what she does, and he doesn't get a Scarlet Letter.
There you go.
So.
But he's also smart enough to keep it on the down low.
He does. She can't keep it on the down low because she's got a baby inside of her.
She should be wearing bigger sweaters.
Right, exactly. But then, there's
it's
a
pilot
child.
season, for God's sake.
And my daughter plays Pearl in it.
Your daughter plays Pearl?
Yeah. So this will be her.
Did she have to audition, or was mom like, just show up?
She was cast in it when we first did it together. And then last year, I was in Nashville when they did it again. So now the entire production has had to go non-union. Oh. So I'm directing the non-union production, which is great.
Hey, let me ask you about that. This has never happened before, and this has become really scary.
Yeah, it has. And we are not supported by a government that likes unions either. So that's also what's scary.
I went out for an IHOP commercial, and I was getting laughs in the room.
Yeah.
And this is earlier this year. This has never happened. And I ran into some people on an audition the other day, and it's happening to everybody. So I got the call back. I was very excited.
Yeah.
And about 2 days before the audition happened, my agents called and said they've gone non-union.
Yep. This is happening a lot. Like, I would say 70 to 80% of commercials are going non-union right now.
Oh, my God. Why? Well, how long has this been going on? Because it never happened before.
It's been progressively getting worse. And, we are in a climate right now that does not respect unions. And then there was this Supreme Court decision last week about...
Dues paying
That's
members.
correct.
Wow.
Where, you don't have to pay dues to get the benefit of union. Well, then... what's the point?
Yeah, boy.
You know, I mean, that's what's been able to separate us. You know, you work your butt off. I worked for several years to be able to become equity and all of this, and now it's almost a hindrance.
That's crazy. I was wondering. I remember Pat and I both had a commercial that went out at the theaters at the same time. I was with Benny.
Yeah.
And your medieval,
the Geico spots,
spot, and mine was a Planet Fitness one, and they played in the same theater at the same time.
Oh, that's so cool. Did you have a buyout for that?
No way, man.
So you got paid every time?
The residuals were very, very nice.
That was you, but
awesome.
mine...
It was the first Geico spot to run in movie theaters.
That's awesome.
You know, and it ran before women's tennis on ESPN with an audience of 30 million.
Wow.
So we're watching.
The Planet Fitness one was obviously, that was a non-union one.
Because now we have this new media stuff, and these contracts have really cut what the cut we get for our work.
It's to me, because the best thing about doing a commercial, like I did in AT&T last year, the residuals cover you during the hard times. You know what I mean?
My dad did those McDonald's commercials for 17 years. And
17 years of residuals.
Right. And I mean, now, this started in the 70s, so it wasn't like you were making the kind of money you were making in the 90s or whatever. But still, he had a house in Woodland Hills. He had 2 cars. He had 2 kids. You know, his bills were basically paid every month, you know, from acting.
It must be nice. I mean, during my Burger King spots, I was talking to the Burger King.
Yep.
And the Burger King, he had a great deal. He was almost as tall as me.
Is he the same guy in every commercial?
Yeah, he was the same guy in every commercial with the.
So he
with
made
the King.
A contract for years.
They had him on a straight contract where he was paid as the lead of all these commercials because Burger King had to be
like
in the
a
commercial.
buyout.
No, well, he said the residuals were really, really great.
So his work was a buyout, and then he got residuals.
Exactly, because they wanted to keep him in the Burger King costume because it was molded to him. And he's like, I can go out for anything else because I don't look like the Burger King. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but nobody knows who he is.
Right.
Just like Jack in the Box.
Or like my dad doing Captain Crook.
Yeah, and obviously if they made the costume to Captain Crook, you can't lose your dad because
he was also Snorky the elephant.
Oh,
in the banana split.
Oh God, I love the banana split.
Hey, and for those of you at home, Jeff is squeeing all of our lovely guests' feet.
Tra la 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 la. Tra la 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 la. I had a snorky horn in here. I go honk honk.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool.
Wow.
Yeah, my dad was like part of so many people's childhoods.
Does he have a lifetime pass to Kings Island?
No.
Is that where they filmed the amusement park?
He got so sick. He tells me the story of being inside
the roller coaster
and having to be on the roller coaster. He got so ill because you're in there and you have very limited vision.
And the belt, yeah. And the seatbelt.
It's like going blindfolded.
Did he vomit?
Coaster.
I have to know. Did your dad vomit in the snorkeling
He didn't.
costume?
I don't think he vomited in the costume, but he was very ill. And I think he also had to do a roller coaster or some kind of amusement park thing for Captain Crook too. They did one of the commercials that way. If you go on YouTube, there's a lot of those old commercials.
Wow.
And people love them. They're so nostalgic, you know?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you can see the strings and I mean they're so what we would consider low tech now.
Oh,
you know?
The French fries, you can see the
the Fry Guys.
apple pie tree.
Well, and the Fry Guys started to change how the commercials were. The Fry Guys were cheaper than having people.
Oh.
So, and they still have some of the characters.
Those are Sid and Marty Krofft puppets, weren't they?
Yeah.
I believe so,
They were. I think Joe Alves, who we had in the show, he designed Jaws, Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Joe Alves, I believe, actually designed the Puff and Stuff world. He was in the late 60s, early 70s.
Oh, that's so cool.
And
yeah.
You know what I mean? And what happened is McDonald Land, the reason the commercials went off the air, Sid and Marty Krofft sued because McDonald Land looked so much like the Puff and Stuff world, and they won.
That's what I thought it was.
That's why they lost Kling and Klang. Remember the 2 cops?
Yeah.
Remember in the McDonald's Land commercials her father was starring in?
We had Grimace.
It was the cops. The cops. By the way, you never hear Grimace anymore. I was really thrilled when I saw Infinity War. When I think it was Star-Lord says to Thanos, I'm going to blow that thing right off your chin, Grimace. You know, and I thought because he's purple and he's giant.
I know.
And only people like us are going to know that have that in their childhood.
Kids aren't growing up with it, but we have the melamine plates from my childhood, and now with my dad on them, and my kids, we use those plates every day.
They should be in a museum.
I know, but it's like I want to use them. It's so neat, you know.
No, your dad, was he friends? Who was the Hamburglar? Because they changed his image like 3 times.
Gosh, what's his name? One of them just passed away. He was the oldest Munchkin.
Jerry Marin.
Jerry Marin was in the commercials with my dad. Yeah. He was good friends with my dad forever. And then I remember doing one of those autograph signing convention things with my grandmother. And we were right next to Jerry Marin. And it was like, oh my gosh, this is so neat.
Was he angry?
No, he was actually really sweet.
I'm joking.
Yeah, he was really cool. And he had a lovely wife who I think is still alive too.
I have another top secret, the most kept secret identity in the world is Ronald McDonald. And my friend, my personal friend I used to ride my motorcycle with is Ronald McDonald.
Who is it?
I can't say. I can't tell you.
He doesn't know.
I'll tell you off the air.
Okay, because I know several of them. I grew up in their houses.
He's the current one. We were. He just.
Oh, the current one. I wouldn't know that one.
Oh, he's the newest one. Yeah.
King Moody was my dad's friend, and King Moody played the Ronald forever for like 10 years. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, he was a really good friend of my dad's.
Was he related to Ron Moody?
I don't know. I don't think so. I think no. Yeah, my dad also, you guys, was the original Snoopy in Your Good Man Charlie Brown.
He's the singing voice, yeah.
Well, no, but he did it on stage for 2.5 years with Gary Berghoff. In that's how my parents met.
Wait. Was this late 60s or early?
Yes, late 60s.
He just wore a turtleneck sweater.
I hated that.
You're a good man.
No way, I hated that. I wanted Snoopy to look like Snoopy.
When I was in elementary school and I saw he was like this blonde-haired surfer dude, and I just like I'm going like, why is it Snoopy? I was so mad. I wanted Snoopy in a bodysuit.
Don't tell me we're gonna watch Snoopy and then
just like the one in Knott's Berry Farm.
But then he was the only person that has ever voiced anything for Snoopy. Now, he didn't make those sounds on the TV show.
Bill Melendez made those sounds.
Right.
The lifelong animator Snoopy.
My dad is the voice of Snoopy on Your Good Man Charlie Brown, the cartoon, which is based on the musical.
And Snoopy's drawn like Snoopy in that cartoon, right?
Oh, yeah. And he sings Supper Time and everything. So if you've ever seen that, and I grew up with it, that's my dad.
Although Snoopy should usually just be pain sounds.
Right. But this was because they put the off-Broadway musical on a cartoon.
I'm assuming your dad's never reprised the role in Dog Seeks God.
No, he has not. Okay. I want to do that play though. But
you have to. You would be perfect.
We just did Your Good Man Charlie Brown. My dad produced it, and I played Sally.
Did you really?
Yeah, which is the Kristen Chenoweth role. When they put it on Broadway in the 90s, they rewrote it. They took Peppermint Patty out and put Sally in. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Why was Peppermint Patty too? Was she too
butch? Maybe.
Too butch. I was gonna say that.
No, they just.
Hey, Chuck.
What it was in the show, she didn't have a song, so they rewrote it so Sally would have a song. So my new philosophy.
Poor Peppermint Patty.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's interesting because when you look at it, it's your dad was the voice of Snoopy. That's kind of amazing.
It's really neat. I'm very proud of my daddy and my heritage, and I got very lucky because once I got out of school in New York and I started working, I got to do a national tour with him.
Did you really?
Yeah, we did the Mikado together, and he played Coco, and I played Yum Yum. So I was actually betrothed to his character, and it was disgusting. But it was cool. I mean, yeah, it was cool. I'm not supposed to want to be with him, and I'm disgusted by his character. So it like
because of our character's relationship, they give us one room.
Exactly. So it was really fun, and I've been able to work with him quite a bit. We did the LA premiere of Disney's Tarzan, the musical, which had been on Broadway. We did the LA premiere.
Oh, was he one of the apes?
No, I played Jane and he played Mr. Porter.
Wow, yeah. Professor Porter, I'll have
Professor
you know.
Porter. So that was super fun. So yeah, I've been able to work with him quite a bit.
Who played Tarzan?
A guy named Tyler Scherer, and he's amazing. And friend, and so we did that together, and we've been really lucky to work together quite a bit. And he's my line coach on everything I do.
I was just going to say, was it good or was it over dinner? You're a little slow in the last number.
No, I'm actually more like that with him now. So we have a really great relationship, and I've been very lucky to have him as my guide and my mentor for my
I just love that your dad was Karg and Masters of the Universe.
I know. It's amazing. When people know that, and I run his little Facebook page, and I'll get these messages from fans from across the world of people that just grew up with that character and wanted to sign stuff, and it's neat.
Well, I write for Star Trek the magazine, and that's one of our things. Our mutual friend Steve Joyner told me. He goes, she's awesome, but her dad was on. And when he told me the name, I go, oh, he's one of the original Ferengis.
You knew.
He did. I've been writing. They put me through college, this magazine.
Oh, my God.
Yes.
That is amazing.
Wow. So it's always been a side gig. The great thing, it's like being a double agent, going in the audition, and you'll meet like two people you've been looking for an article.
That's awesome. Yeah, you have to be careful though, because you don't want to mix too much. I know.
I'm working on a project. I'm working on a book.
Ooh.
And but I'm doing a low budget horror film with an actor who was in a show that I'm covering.
Wow.
I won't say what it is, but I'm thinking, and I haven't mentioned this to him. I mean, the table reads and stuff. I thought I'm going to wait till we're done, and then I'm going to interview him. And I'll put the book back a little bit.
I would. Yeah, I think it's always good.
I can't. It would make it awkward. I think. Don't you?
That's right. Yes, mm-hmm. I think so. I think it's always good to kind of play it cool. I've worked with so many people. I was on Fight Club.
Whoa.
Oh, whoa.
It was more like glorified extra work. I was basically
How did you two not cross paths?
Were you on that?
I'm from beginning to end. I'm a space monkey.
Oh my gosh.
I'm a space monkey, and the last space monkey line in the movie was supposed to be mine. It was written for me, and then the two actors got into a fight over the line.
Oh my God.
And I'm the tall space monkey. Did you do Helena Bonham Carter's stand-in work?
No, I didn't. I was with an older man. I was like arm candy for an older guy in this big banquety scene. I worked on it for like 3 weeks. It was a big process. I bet we worked together.
We had to have. I was on it for 9 months.
Oh my God.
I was teaching high school, and I was teaching high school, and then I would have to go to the worst alleys in downtown LA. Yeah. And I mean, that's why the first thing I thought of when you said San Pedro, I thought of the strip club from Fight Club.
Yeah, 100%.
Now, what about that parking structure where you and your brother were there fighting? You catch him when?
That was the.
Where was that?
That was part of that was San Pedro, and then we got to a certain point where we were on the back lot.
Okay.
I remember the Fight Club was like summer camp. I mean. I would have an audition for a commercial during the day, and then
most of it was night shoots.
They were shooting. But once you were on the Fox lot, you had the run of the lot. Once you were all in black and you had all your scabs and your bruises put on, I mean, what was weird about that movie, you could go anywhere on the Fox lot once you did that. I remember coming to work one morning at Fox, way by you.
Yeah, I know. Yes.
And Nakatomi Plaza from Die Hard. And there was a tiny little guy get out of a red MG. And I remember walking, he and I were both in the lot, and everyone kept stopping him and almost like deferring to him, bowing to him. And he had a high, kind of a squeaky voice. And I'm just kind of slouching along. And even though he was tiny, I noticed with my steps, he had to move quickly because even the parking attendants. And I got, I was walking. It was George Lucas finishing up Phantom Menace. And then there was another day, my brother and I were wandering the lot, and there was this African-American gentleman, and he had a shaved head, and he was dressed almost like a disco samurai. And he was wearing these little sunglasses. And he had a kid, and the kid's head was shaved, and the kid was wearing the identical costume. And I remember my brother asked him, because, it was lunch, and we were just hanging out in the back lot. And he goes to the guy, hey, do you know what time it is? It is 2:21, my most excellent friend. And we're walking back, and I said, hey, Don, was that Lawrence Fishburne? Nah, dummy. Lawrence Fishburne ain't British. It was Lawrence Fishburne doing pickups for Matrix.
Wow.
You know, and
And
Matrix.
oh my God.
And he didn't break the voice. He kept that weird British voice he uses in the movie on the set. And
That's amazing.
And it was just, you would wander the lot, and they were shooting all these big.
Hang out and check out what's going on.
And to me, it was, you know what, it was an amazing. It was a summer camp experience because I just did a commercial at the time, and the commercial was running, and they were going to do a follow up, but I had to shave my head I agreed to shave my head for Fight Club was my brother Don's favorite book. So we told our agents, we'll do anything, we want to work on this movie. You know what I mean? Commercials Unlimited. You know what I mean?
So
and
your brother also works as an actor.
in fact, we've done a lot of commercials.
Okay.
And
Is he tall like you too?
he's stocky. He's
Okay.
about
He's a
6'2".
short. Is he shorter than me? Maybe.
I think he might be a little shorter than like your dad. I do a lot of commercial stuff, but like your dad, I do a lot of creature stuff because
Because you're the other extreme.
exactly. And
exactly.
You don't, and I mean, you're not gonna go amateur hour in a life cast or anything else.
Right.
you
Right.
know?
Oh yeah. No, I know.
Did you-
My dad has done, and he just did another film. I'm trying to remember the name of it. It's coming out where he was this angel, and he had to be like these broken, bloody wings, and he was in. You know, sometimes his makeup on and off is longer than his filming.
Oh yeah, a lot of time.
Yeah.
He stinks of aloe vera for like a week, right? Yeah.
And with Karg, that was the first time he'd ever had to wear contacts, and they had to go through several different pairs to get the right ones for him. And
Now, had he done Star Trek before he did Karg?
I think that was after.
You know why? Michael, I've done a couple creatures and commercials and stuff for like Star Trek Vegas for Michael Westmore. Michael Westmore did both the makeup for Masters of the Universe, and he's the guy who brought back Star Trek for television
Yes.
with Next Generation.
Yes.
And obviously your dad did his thing and he didn't bitch. Michael Westmore is an amazing cat. He's from the Westmore family.
Yeah.
And I mean, he's one of these guys.
I remember him talking about it.
I did an Alien on Voyager where I had to carry the lead actress up a rock in Lone Pine. You know what I mean? And then, you know, they wanted to make, like with Fight Club. I mean, that's why I asked if you also on Fight Club. There was a deleted scene where I wound up because you know you were in the movie. Fincher did no less than 49 takes a day.
I know. Yeah. That's why that one scene I was part of, it went on for like 3 weeks, literally, from all
Take
different
one,
angles.
take two, take three.
Yeah,
blah, blah,
and
blah, blah.
we had water on us for some reason. I don't even remember it. It was kind of terrifying. Like when I think back on it, it was a lot of hours, and it wasn't
all those takes to get the
But you know what?
continuity
I mean,
right.
What was exciting for me is that like Brad Pitt couldn't have been nicer. Fincher
Yes.
couldn't have been nicer. Andrew Kevin Walker, not a lot of people know this. Andrew Kevin Walker was secretly rewriting the movie for Fincher day by day on the
Oh my
set.
God.
You know, the guy who wrote Seven and all this.
Yes.
He was literally doing.
You just saw him pushing his pencil all the time.
Fincher would get a great idea, and he'd say, "Hey, let's throw this in, Andy."
And he would just rewrite on the spot.
And usually Andy Kevin Walker, you know, who also wrote Sleepy Hollow with Johnny Depp. He also wrote. He'll have a small. If he does rerunning for Fincher, he'll have a small role in the movie. He's the sleeping drunk in the next building in Panic Room.
Oh,
Remember
yes.
the sleeping drunk she's trying to wake up?
Yes.
That's Andrew Kevin Walker. And Fincher will.
Hold that! It's time to plug our sponsor.
Oh my God!
We didn't
no.
do that yet.
Hey, question, lovely one. When you are in Rancho Cucamonga, but you want a New York bagel, where do you go?
I would like to know because I'm going to go there in a few minutes.
Well, let me tell you. I'll tell you exactly.
Not for an
where
hour,
to go.
baby.
You want to go to New York Bagel Company in Rancho Cucamonga, right on the corner of
Archibald
Foothill and Archibald.
And not only that, it's a delicious New York bagel. More importantly, it's
What
made
makes a New York bagel, Pat?
well, it would be Jamal, our sponsor, but also New York water. New York water is very
New
important.
York water.
It puffs up the bagel. It makes the bagel taste New York
So
good.
they fly the water in?
They
do.
fly. They get a big helicopter and they scoop it up from Niagara Falls.
Jamal is so insistent on the New York experience. He makes you wait 3 hours to eat it.
Oh,
It's really nice. They have a black and white backdrop
Of Times Square.
of Times Square.
That's awesome.
And they have 2 clocks, New York time and LA time. And not only that, my favorite bagel is the blueberry breakfast sandwich.
Ooh.
I would heartily recommend the Everything Bagel. You know, the Everything Bagel is amazing.
Do they do lox there too?
Yes,
They do.
there's many bagels to choose from, but I'm a creature of habit, and I get the same thing every time, as well as Patrick.
Yes, you know what? I usually do the Everything Bagel, which is astoundingly good.
Oh,
you know?
yeah.
That's New York Bagel Company in Rancho Cucamonga.
And by the way, I want a
Yes.
cigar, and I want to drink, and I want to watch the sun set over the International House of Pancakes. Where do I go in Little
Well,
Upland?
let me see. That would be downtown Upland, Pacific Wine Merchant and Cigar Exchange, our
There you
sponsor.
go. You're a redhead.
Yes.
You can party.
Do they do tastings and stuff there?
They do tastings and
They
stuff.
not only that, they do Steal the Glass, a wine tasting with cheese,
Fridays like today, live band
and live music on Fridays and Saturdays.
in glorious Little Upland.
Do they have air conditioning?
Yes, and they got the outdoor
Wow,
patio.
look at you. I thought you
No,
were,
because today is supposed to be fire. So
Yes.
I thought you were born in a truck,
They have the
smartass.
finest wines and craft beers from all over the country.
yes.
And the finest humidor, one of the largest cigar humidors in Southern California.
That's awesome.
It is. You can't go wrong with Jamal's. It's just an amazing place, and it's delicious. And you can't go wrong. Back here, Upland. You should show the redhead. She's much more adorable than us. It's the Upland Wine Merchant Cigar Exchange is
You
amazing.
got it! You got
I
it!
love it.
Let's hear it. Mark Heffernan, the owner, will be so proud of you for saying that all correctly in one sentence.
You know what? The best thing for this heat is a cold craft beer.
Oh yes.
You know?
Yes. So good.
I've
So
got a
good.
little kiddie pool, which I will, with a little slide by the art studio, which I will be waiting in today and streaming live. So make sure you're.
This is the hottest day of the year,
Yes.
everybody.
Yeah.
Drink
this
some
was-
water.
In Southern California, my parents lived in Tucson for 10 years. And I literally, when I would visit them, I would feel like a lemur. You would have to wait till it was nightfall to slip out the house.
I know. Well, at least on the West Coast, at least it gets a little bit cooler at night, where on the East Coast, it doesn't cool off.
You're Santa Monica, Smarty. You're never going to be hot.
Well, it can still get pretty bad. It can. Yeah. Last night I was like, ooh, my body that wants to be in Ireland is like, no.
yes.
You know, being a redhead, we just don't do heat.
No,
My
yeah.
youngest daughter just shuts down because she's like the most redhead freckle little thing with
Keep
green
her out of the
eyes.
sun, you know.
Yeah, but she just hates it. So.
Patrick, we're in the second half of our show. Introduce our guest for us, please, while we're streaming live on Facebook.
We are here with the adorable Kristin Towers, the daughter
Hello.
of the one true Ferengi from Star Trek and Karg the Beastman.
Yes, yes.
Her father had his own action figure. More importantly, she's a musical dance legend. She's also part Polish, which means she's perfect.
Yes, I'm quarter Polish. My dad is Polish-Russian. So.
Wow.
Yeah, but he was born here, so
So he's never oppressed himself?
no. But he was born like, you know, his both his parents came like World War I, so he's like first generation American.
Not only that, she's done a ton of commercials. She does a lot of theater. You can
A
tell.
lot of theater.
The amazing, what's great is we've only had one cup of coffee each.
Yes.
And you're bouncing off the walls, which fits our energy here.
I had
you know?
about an hour of sleep last night because my body was like, I don't do mornings. And so I was like, I'm not going to wake up. So I
You beat us to the studio, and we're 6 minutes away. Do you know how shameful that
you
is?
gave you are Patrick and I's cup of coffee this morning.
You really are. I mean,
You really woke us up this
you're
morning.
giving
Oh,
us a
thank
contact
you.
high. You're enthusiastic. You're awake. You're aware. You know what I mean?
that is something I am. That does separate me from a lot of like females in Hollywood who
We won't tell Dutchie, the owner of the station, that we cranked up the air conditioning.
We can't kill.
Yes, send you the power bill, buddy.
We can't kill the Little Mermaid.
No, thank you. I know my flippers.
Wow. Well, now tell us what is your favorite play to do? What is the one play that knocked you out?
Well, I will tell you right now. I am currently doing All My Sons, which is one
A
of
Million Laughs, that Arthur Miller.
it's Arthur Miller's. It's a masterpiece. I mean, it is.
Depressing though.
Yes.
Come on,
and
you know it is.
Yeah, it is, but it's also such a timepiece, and it really shows kind of where our country was at right after World War II, and this family dynamic that I think anybody who comes to see this will find a part of themselves in the play. It's at the Group Rep, which is the Lonnie Chapman Group Rep Theater. So
Is Lonnie Chapman still with us, by the way?
He passed away several years
That's
ago.
what I thought.
Years
Okay,
ago.
wow.
And I became a member of this company about a year ago, and I've done some great work there. I just did a show called The Cape and the Clan, which was about how the Superman radio show.
Yeah, the Clan message. They did a play of this?
We did a play about it. And
Talk about that, because that was famous. The writer, I think it was Jackson Collier, was the writer. He also wrote for Adventures of Superman later.
He infiltrated the KKK.
Yeah.
He went undercover and pretended to be one of them. And then he went to the writers of the Superman radio show and
With
said...
Bud Collyer, the famous Bud Collyer is the first actor to play Superman in the radio show.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So he told them what was happening, and they put it on the show, and it actually turned the country against the KKK.
They mocked the hand signals. They since one of the writers, it might be Jackson, it might be someone else, and like she said, like Kristin said, infiltrated the Klan, and they were doing the secret hand symbols and everything. And Superman talked about how on the radio how un-American and evil it was, you know.
And it was the first time, because there had been several incarnations of the Klan. They would come out at certain times in our history, and then they'd go away, and they'd go under a rock, and then they'd come back.
Yeah.
And so this was at one of the times where they were more prevalent. And
members of Congress were Klansmen.
Correct.
Or Grand Dragons and stuff. That's horrifying.
It is.
You know?
And unfortunately, we're not so far away.
Yeah.
I think doing this play, it was super relevant to the time.
Were you the voice of Lois Lane?
I was.
You know what? You've been giving off the most amazing Amy Adams vibe for the last hour. I mean,
yeah, I get compared to her a lot. We're the same age.
Oh, wow. And you've got a total ginger Lois Lane vibe.
Yes, and I was so happy to play Lois Lane. I played other characters too. It was a neat play because part of it was the actual radio show, and I was one of the radio players.
So you do the Lois Lane breathlessness.
That's right. And then the other part of the play was actually showing what the Klan did, and the guy that came in and infiltrated it, and how he came to the Superman show and was like, we need to put this on the air. And they were like, we absolutely will not put this on the air at first. You know, he had to really talk them into it. And then they fought about it, and they thought, you know what? This is a patriotic thing to do. We need to expose what's happening. And so it's a great play. And so we did the world premiere of that.
When was that? Are you doing it again? Because I would love to see that.
I want to do it again. I'm hoping another theater
If you do, save us 2 seats, because we will definitely.
I will definitely let you know about it.
I knew the play was coming. I didn't realize it was already done.
It happened, and I can hook you guys up with the guys that wrote it.
We support all our guests on our show.
But we want to see you do Lois Lane on stage. That would be.
Well, I want you to come see me and all my sons then.
Oh, sure, but it doesn't sound fun. No.
It's really. I mean,
Arthur Miller is, as someone who had to read Death of a Salesman in college, it was pretty depressing.
It is not a barrel of laughs, but it does make you think, and it does make you appreciate the good in your life, I feel. And it was interesting. Some of the reviews came out yesterday, and there was a woman that said, I wanted to jump on the stage, and I wanted to be the peacemaker of these characters, because you get so into it. She said, and that is how I'm feeling these days with our conflict in this country and our division. She said, it's really interesting how it made me think about that, and how I need to do more to be a peacemaker.
Now, let me ask you, to go back to Cape and the Clan for a minute.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, do they cover the origin of kryptonite in the play?
No, they don't really talk about that. You see a little bit of how actually the Superman radio show was failing at the time.
Wow.
It was losing viewers. They were almost going to take it off the air.
Kellogg's cereal sponsored. That's
right. And in our show, it was, we used fictitious names. It was still the story, but we used fictitious names of companies and people. But it was very interesting how this story and how the country got behind Superman is how it saved the show and it exposed the Klan.
What's interesting is I've written for some comic magazines covering the market, and that radio show is where both Jimmy Olsen and Kryptonite came from.
Right.
And Kryptonite, Bud Collyer, who played Superman, was guaranteed 2 weeks off a year. Well, how are you going to do Superman without Superman?
Yeah.
And so what they did is the same writer, I believe, who exposed the Klan, came up with this idea where Superman rocks from Superman's destroyed planet are radioactive to him and everyone else from that planet. The villains find this out and they throw Superman in a closet with a bunch of rocks from his homeworld.
Oh my God, that's so funny.
Superman, which anyone could do. One of the other, Perry White or someone would fill in and do Superman's moans, because it was only a 10-minute radio show. So you do Superman's grunts of pain for 2 weeks while Bud Collier's off fishing or something.
That's so funny.
Okay, that makes sense.
And that's how Kryptonite became. And the other character to come out of the radio show was Jimmy Olsen.
Jimmy Olsen.
He was Office Boy, and I think there's Office Boy in a comic as well. And finally, one of the writers said, well, he calls him Office Boy every episode. Why doesn't he just call him by a name? And the radio show is where they assigned Jimmy Olsen his name.
Okay.
Wow, that is so cool. I had no idea.
It was fun because I'm a singer, of course, and when I got to do the show, my friend Stan Mason directed it. He's amazing, Broadway vet.
Wow.
And I said, are we doing a jingle on this show? And he was like, oh, we need a jingle. So my friend, I'm a Christmas caroler every December.
Are you really?
Professional
Wow.
caroler. My friend who was in the show with me, we've been caroling together for a decade, and he's an amazing musician. My friend Michael Thatcher, I love you, Michael.
Aww.
And he wrote this great jingle, and we performed it on stage, and it was super funny. Like, it gave the audience a little reprieve from kind of like all the, KKK stuff. So it's fun.
No, it takes you out of it. You can't just do the downbeat stuff. You need the radio days type thing.
Well, and we were kind of the comic relief. Our stuff was so silly and fun, and we were old radio actors. It was hilarious. My dad loved it because that's where all his roots are.
That's right. He would have grown up listening to you.
Yeah.
Because your dad is 2 years older than Superman.
Right. Right.
Wow. Yeah, 36 and 38.
Yeah, he grew up The Shadow, and he would play all of these old radio shows for me growing up. And then he also was a disc jockey at CSUN for their old radio show program. So
Are you
he would go
serious?
and he'd be the voice you'd hear, So I grew up being so young and being in the studio with him. Being in radio to me is like second nature. That's what, whenever I'm a radio guest, people are like, you know how to do this, because some people don't know how to keep it going. And I've just always been on radio my whole life with my dad.
Well, I'm from Detroit, which is where the Green Hornet is from. They created the Green Hornet and everything in Detroit, Michigan.
So
George
cool.
W. Trendle, and it's kind of exciting because by doing that, they used to play WJPK, the old Detroit station, used to play the old radio shows,
So
and
cool.
they were all done. I did an interview with the late Casey Kasem, who went to
I loved Casey Kasem.
I usually listen to Sunday nights when they do the rebroadcast of America's Top 40.
Top 40. That's the only way, because I never listened to Top 40 music. I grew up listening to Sondheim because I'm a musical theater girl.
Shameful.
Yeah. And so I would listen to
Dead
that.
Chair,
and be like,
Once Upon a Mattress, ass out of here.
And Once Upon a Mattress, I've played Fred in that.
I know you did. Once you have the Amy Adams vibe, you know what I mean?
Right. Well, and Carol Burnett. I'm compared to Carol Burnett a lot. My comedic sensibility on stage is similar to her.
But when you said Cape and the Clan, all I could think of was you had to be Lois Lane.
Lois Lane.
I'd be so disappointed if you weren't Lois Lane.
Yeah, and my character was kind of like this New York broad who played Lois Lane. So I got to do a lot of different voices.
So you do the innocent doe like Lois Lane and then slip into kind of a world-weary 57th Street Harridan?
Yeah, it was super fun. Wow. I love that. I'm really, and I know I kind of have an Amy Adams vibe, but I'm much more of a character actress than that.
Wow, but you make an adorable Lois Lane.
Thank you. Yeah, and it was funny because there were old pictures of Lana, and I looked like Lana.
Yeah, Lana Lang from Smallville.
Lana Lang, but in the old comics, she had red hair and everything.
Yes.
So that was really cool.
Wow.
Yeah.
I forgot Lana Lang was a redhead.
Yeah,
You're
somebody sent a picture to me who saw the show. They were like, I couldn't stop thinking how much you looked like Lana.
Wow.
Yeah.
I know the original Lana Lang, actually. Diane Sherry lives out by you.
Oh, wow.
Diane Sherry Case. She used to be married to Peter Case.
Is she a redhead too?
Yes.
Peter Case
Yeah.
from the Plimsolls?
Yeah.
Oh,
That was her husband.
That's
And
cool.
they divorced, but happily she got the Santa Monica house.
Yeah, she got lucky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think he had a serious case of the SADS.
Yeah, I'm sure. You don't want to lose a house in Santa Monica now. Gosh, it's so expensive.
Wow. That's hilarious.
Yeah.
So tell us, what are the other plays that you really dug doing?
So I did the LA premiere of a show called Violet. It's a Janine Tresori musical, and it's about a girl who gets cut across her face with an axe by accident, and it defines her life. She's from a small town in North Carolina, and she gets on a bus because she's going to go see her preacher man who is going to fix her face. And along the way, it's during Vietnam, it's 1964, she meets a white and a black soldier, and she develops a relationship with both of them. She's never even seen a black person before. She winds up falling in love with the black guy in 1964 in the South on a bus. So it's such an amazing show. It's being done again, and the guy who played my leading man is doing it at another theater right now, and it changed my life playing the role. I played younger Violet, who was the teenager when I was in my 20s, and then a couple years ago I played older Violet, who's the main character.
Yeah.
So I got to it's rare that you get to play the younger and older character. Version of a character. And I've had a very complete journey with the show. Wow. And it's just the love of my life, that show. And it's really hard for me to know it's going on somewhere else because it's just a part of me.
Wow, I can tell you're almost tearing up when you talk about the play.
Sutton Foster did it on Broadway a couple of years ago. It had never been done on Broadway. It had been done off Broadway. And so she kind of brought it back because Sutton Foster's a huge Broadway star. So she brought it back to kind of the knowledge of the Broadway community. And so now it's being done more.
How bad are the
I didn't wear prosthetics.
You didn't?
I took, it was very interesting.
Grease pencil? No,
they talk about in the beginning of the script that the whole point is that it's not this scar, it's this scar.
Right.
So if you put it, so everyone sees it.
And she points at herself for those listening.
We did nothing.
Topical?
You do nothing. No. But my director was brilliant, and he had this idea my director, Josh Finkel. I love you, Josh.
Oh.
He had this idea that at the end, when I finally see that I haven't been healed because a preacher can't fix a scar that's 20 years old on your face. When I'm looking in the mirror, they flashed on these projected screens what my face really looked like. Whoa. So we had done a photo session. I have a friend who does creature makeup and special effects makeup.
What's her name? Maybe I know them.
Rachel. I'm trying to remember Rachel's last name. You probably wouldn't know her, but she did this amazing scar, and we took a picture of him holding my face, which they showed at the end. He proposes to me at the end, and you can see what I really looked like to him. It was really beautiful.
Wow.
It was really, really beautiful. It was just an amazing experience. I've done a lot. I've done over 100 plays and musicals. So I've worked so much. I've worked all over the world. I've worked in China and Taiwan and done a lot of musical reviews. And one of the best things I ever did was I did the new cast album of And the World Goes Round, which is sorry, I'm trying to think of their names right now. Kander and Ebb. God, I'm tired. Kander and Ebb, who wrote Cabaret.
Oh, yeah.
Chicago. So And the World Goes Round is a review that they created several years ago, and there was a recording done of it, but it wasn't complete. So I did a production of it in North Hollywood at NoHo Arts several years ago.
Did you really?
And they decided to do a cast album of it. And so I'm on the new cast album of that. And I'm with Jason Graw and Brent Barrett, a bunch of big Broadway people, Christian Knoll. And there were only 5 of us. And so I get to sing Arthur in the Afternoon on that, which is a really funny song. And I got to sing John Kander's favorite song, which is A Quiet Thing.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So, yeah, it was a really amazing experience because I've never really recorded. And so it was wonderful to have that. And for the rest of my life, I'm on a new cast album. So
Now, what is your favorite? And any song, you've done millions of them, Gilbert and Sullivan and all that night after night. What's your favorite? What's the best thing you've ever sung?
I have a current favorite. There's a musical theater writer named Jeff Blumenkrantz, and he wrote a song called "My Heart Was Set on You," and it's a full story. It has a full arc, and it's absolutely beautiful. I mean, I love doing stuff like that, but then I also love doing stuff like Arthur in the Afternoon, which is sexy and funny and silly. So I kind of have a wide range of what I can sing. I'm a soprano, but I look like a belter.
Yeah, you do, actually.
I look like a sassy redheaded belter, and I can belt, but my voice is really, I'm like operatically soprano. Yeah, so I'm a weirdo. I sound like my grandmother, actually.
Actually, that makes sense.
Yeah, so I'm a soprano, and I've done it all, and I don't expect to anytime soon stop.
Oh, yeah, a girl, you know what I mean? It's a proper attitude, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I feel that if anything else, I want to show my daughters that just because you're not 20 anymore doesn't mean you shouldn't be working, you know?
You know what I mean? Well, yeah.
Because there's an expectation that women are supposed to like disappear because they're not 20, you know?
Yeah. Well, you look very close to 20, so thank your parents.
And I think it's good. I think we need to see more ages, like women who are mothers, women who are, their kids have just left for college. Why should they disappear? You know, they have a story to tell too. And
did you ever see Evita?
Yeah. I've never done Evita. I would like to do Evita. Everyone tells me I should do it.
I remember when it was, they had the big one in Hollywood. That was years ago when it premiered. I remember they had commercials on TV, and it ran for a long time.
It did. Yeah, it's a great show.
Wow, I was just looking over your credits. I mean, it's interesting all the musicals you've done. You know what I mean? I
won Musical Theater Star of the Year 2 years ago.
Oh, good girl, really?
Yeah. So that was nice because I was told I'd never be on stage again when I was younger because I got I had an injury on a national tour I was on. I was on VeggieTales Live national tour.
Wow.
VeggieTales.
I played Junior Asparagus.
Oh.
Junior Asparagus.
And my back like basically broke, and they were like, "You'll never dance again. You'll never be on stage again." And
you broke your back on VeggieTales?
My disc exploded.
Sorry, oh look, we're live.
My disc exploded in my back, and they said I'd never be on stage, and I've defied them.
You're lucky you didn't play the carrot.
Right?
You realize the same thing happened to Batman, Kristin, and he rallied before the third act.
That's right.
I played a carrot in third grade.
Did you?
Yes.
Unlike you, though.
Vegetable on stage.
And it's true. When Jeff played a vegetable, and they put his carrot in extras holding. They said, "Please don't talk to the bunny. He has lines." I'm sorry, Mr. Carrot. That food is for leads only. That's for Peter Cottontail and the immediate cast.
Oh my gosh. You guys are funny. You guys rib each other a lot.
Thank you. It comes from a lifetime of reviews.
We couldn't do the show alone. It'd be horrible.
Right. I mean, no, you got it.
It's terrifying to do something alone.
But when you do the plays,
yeah.
Have you ever gone up on stage? Talk about that. Have you ever
like gone up on my lines?
Yeah.
Not really. I have a show tomorrow, so who knows? But no, I learned. My dad always says I learn from the inside out. I don't even know how to do lines without connecting them to what my character's going through. So I don't know. I work so hard on learning. This show, I was working in DC and I was with my kids there for 10 days before we opened. I left 2 weeks before the show was opening, and I had to come back, and I had one rehearsal and I got on stage. So, you gotta, like, that is New York training. I had a teacher in New York who was like, your lines are everything. You can't even act without knowing your lines.
Wow.
And I go on set and people have like 4 lines in one day, and I'm like, you don't even know. You don't even know what it's like to do 2.5 hours straight on stage. That's why I'm saying I think it separates the men from the boys.
Oh, it sure does.
Now, how long does the dialogue stay in your head after the play ends?
45 seconds, because I'm usually I'm usually on to the next thing. I'm pretty consistently booked back to back. So when I don't have to think about it anymore is out.
Really? So it's like magnetic. You can turn it off when you need to.
I do. Like the show I did for 8 months, I was coming and going from that show. And that, because I was coming and going from it, it just stayed. I never had to like go over it. You know?
Well, Robert Romanos was telling us the same thing. Remember I said he did like 2 hours of dialogue for the whole, and didn't stop. And there was only 2 people on stage at the time.
Yeah, no, I mean that's terrifying. I have a friend who actually just wrote a one-woman show, and she's like, "I'm thinking of you for this." It's 80 pages, and I'm like,
God.
"Okay, let's do it." You know?
You can do it, right? You can do that.
I can do it. It's just I don't like being me on stage. I like being somebody else.
That other person.
I don't like, that's why I never became a recording artist or anything like that. I like playing other humans. I never want to stand on stage and just be Kristin singing.
Oh, really?
And I've done it. I do a one-woman show called A Lovely Lineage that's about my family history. I sing songs that my grandmother sang, songs my grandfather starred in A Tree Grows in Brooklyn on Broadway.
Really? This is Catherine's husband or
ex-husband. He was married 6 times.
Wow. Wait, what was the actor's name? I'm curious.
Johnny Johnston.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You did mention that. I see his IMDb in my head, but I can't come up with any credits. So he didn't do any genre stuff.
He did. He was in the movie Rock Around the Clock.
Yeah, Sam Katzman.
Yeah, he was in a movie called Unchained, and he actually was the first person to
With
sing
Glenn
Unchained
Ford.
Melody.
He sings Unchained Melody.
He
That's
does.
where, wow.
So I sing that in my show because it's such a neat thing that my grandfather was the first person to sing it.
That's the movie they made with Glenn Ford though. Unchained, that was the first time you heard Unchained Melody on film.
That's
long
right.
Before Ghost.
That's right.
Wow.
So I come from a long line. So I do this show called A Lovely Lineage that talks about everybody I come from, and then I talk about what I've done and where I'm going. So it's really neat.
Who's the most intimidating actor you've worked with?
I worked on this movie called, I'm trying to remember it. It was a person's name, Sabrina or something like that, with Al Pacino.
Wow, oh my God, you're in Simone.
Simone.
And that's Andrew Niccol with the Kaotic.
I was doing like a very bit thing, but I got to work with him, and he is about my height. He is so tiny, and he is so lovely.
Wow.
But before I got to the set, I thought to myself, like, this is the scariest thing I've ever done. And then when I got there, he was so cool that it was like, whatever. I mean, so down to earth, asking if I needed water, like so nice. We were working on a beach several years ago. So yeah, that's probably, and then recording the cast album that I recorded. I was the only person on that cast album without Broadway credits. There were 5 of us.
Really?
And they were so cool to work with too, but I felt very like, you know, like I hadn't accomplished anything in life, and they were all, you know, but that is how I felt, because I put people who've done Broadway on a pedestal, because to me, there's no greater talent than that.
Yeah, but a lot of good stuff came up off Broadway. Did you ever do Audrey and the Little Shop of Horrors?
I've done it twice.
Oh,
yeah.
my God. Please let me know when you do it again. I would love to see you
hope I do it again. Yeah. They cast that thing with like 20-year-olds now, and I don't agree with that. Audrey has had a life.
Right.
Audrey has been around.
Yeah.
You know what she says? She's had a past.
Yeah.
It's one of her lines. How can you have a past if you're 20 years old?
By the way,
you know?
you're right.
So, yeah, I hope to do it again because it's one of my favorite roles.
Was it fun? Talk about that. I mean, doing that, was it weird working with the plant puppet, knowing that?
Yes. The last one I did, usually the plant is rented from a house that like does it all over the place.
An effects house, yeah.
My director built it, and there were people inside it. So when I had to like be eaten, I was like, dress would come off in there and whatever. And I'd just be like, sorry guys, you know? I had a mic that would be hot inside so they could hear it.
Wow.
I love that show so much, and I'm one of those people that I believe that musical theater it's a series of monologues. Like if I'm sitting there singing to the audience, I'm doing a monologue. I'm not just singing a song. And so I did some really fun stuff with Somewhere That's Green.
I was about to say, I would love to hear you belt that. I know you don't consider yourself a belter, but I'll bet you.
Well, for that show, I had to belt. Yeah, I had to belt. I mean, there's better belters than me, hands down, because I'm a soprano. My voice just doesn't have, my power is up where Kristine's stuff is in Phantom. That's really where I sound great. But who does that anymore? You know, they like when my grandmother was doing musicals, all the musicals were written for sopranos.
And then, yeah, they knock out the cheap seats in the back.
Right. Well, and you had to sing in your head, and you had to sing high, and you had to sing over an orchestra. Now,
oh wow,
yeah, I mean, most of the Broadway shows, they didn't have mics.
really?
They were singing live over orchestras.
And the groundlings had to hear you.
That's correct. That's correct.
Wow.
So,
I mean, if the plebes in the back can't hear you, there's no play.
well, and that's my training. You know, my training is sing to the back of the 2,000 seat house.
So you can project even now.
Oh, yes. Oh,
Which is the mother of 3 daughters probably comes in handy.
very much so. Very much so.
Wow,
Yeah.
Interesting.
So yeah, I one of those people that I've played a lot of belt roles and I've played a lot of soprano roles, and I just love the craft of musical theater. It's the only American art form. It's the only art form that really began here, where we've like perfected other art forms like film and stuff, but didn't start here. Musical theater began here.
As well as jazz and film noir and comic books.
Right.
Other
Right.
American pastimes.
Right. But this was the first of where it was a performing art that was truly American.
Wow.
Yeah. So and now it stemmed from operetta that came from England, right? So like Gilbert and Sullivan and all of that. But we were the ones that like created book musicals and then really characters you cared about. It wasn't just silliness. So yeah, so I love when I can combine all of the things that I do and into a show like Violet or Audrey, where it's like all my talents come together, and music to me is it's the international language. You know,
Where did you do Little Chef of Horrors? Where were the?
I did it at a theater. The first time I did it was in the 90s when I had first moved back from New York. And I did it at this theater that is no longer there, that was above Jerry's Deli in Studio City, called the Excalibur Theater.
I remember the Excalibur.
Yes.
Wow.
So I did that there, and then
By the bowling alley.
yeah, and then a couple of years ago I did it at Westchester Playhouse, which is by the airport, and they don't usually have equity people there, but I was given a contract, so it was a way for me to work there.
Wow, bravo.
Yeah, because you can't, if you're an equity actor, you can't get on stage without a contract. Wow. So, yeah. And we had our 99 plan, which allowed us to, and that is gone now.
No, the 99-seat theater, that's been gone a while, right?
They did away with it at the end of 2015.
Oh, that makes me
I
sad.
don't understand. Why not 100 seats? Why 99?
Well,
Because
well, what it was it was set up so that actors could get on stage and work without the benefit of contract. Because we have 7,000 equity members in Los Angeles.
Working at the finest of restaurants.
So long as
Let her finish.
Well, the other thing that you have to understand is we are not a theater town. While there are the second largest number of theater actors live in Los Angeles, we don't have the same kind of audiences that New York has.
Right.
So we don't have the same kind of paying work that New York has, because people are not flying on airplanes to see 99-seat theater. They're
Unless
coming
Joseph Papp is there with Tom Hanks, no.
well, and they're doing that, but that's very rare. And again, like when you go to the Pantages, there's not a single LA actor on that stage.
Are you serious?
Correct, because those are all national tours that are cast out of New York.
Aladdin and everything. Wow.
So if you're a theater actor in LA, you have to find work. I would have to fly to New York to get cast and stuff to work in my town to be paid.
That's awful. How did they allow this to happen?
It is what it is. There's more equity members in New York, so that's where the union is stronger, and we've gone through a lot. So I'm just happy that I'm still on stage.
Yeah, this is true. Knock wood.
And it's because I'm in companies, because you can still work as an equity actor in companies without a contract. Yeah, but they want to do away with it. So
Well, yeah, that would give it all to New York. Again, it blows my mind that you have a better chance as a crew or something of working on a movie if you're in Louisiana than if you're in LA.
I know.
How did they allow this to happen?
Well, I just think it's economics. You know, it's such an expensive city. It's expensive to film here. And you can get a lot of tax breaks in other states. And labor is not as expensive, right? Our cost of living is higher here, so our labor is more expensive here. But if you're in the South, in a small town, you can pay somebody the minimum wage of that state.
I did not know that. Wow. So
It's also the right to work.
right to work state, exactly.
Correct. They don't have to be union.
Wow.
So there's a lot to it. There's a lot to it. I highly recommend that people, if you're going to go to theater, make sure you're going to see a union production that supports union actors.
Wow.
And that they're LA actors.
Yeah, no, I had no idea that a lot of Equity LA can't work on stage in LA.
Well, I mean, you can, but there's very rare contracts. Everything at the Pantages is a national tour. There's nothing local happening there. Most of the stuff at the Amundsen, also national tour.
But Acme's local, you know what I mean? I've been to Acme for a few plays. That's local, right?
Yes, I think, yes. But that's not a union space anymore.
Oh, no. Seriously? Mm-hmm. What the hell?
We're in a really tough time for union actors and union people across the board. Anybody in the business.
Because I mean that IHOP commercial, as I mentioned earlier, the IHOP commercial, I got the call back. You know what I mean?
And then they were going to go non-union.
And they went non-union. Yeah, they went non-union. I mean,
that's rough.
And I'm talking to my agent. She goes, honey, it happens all the time. I go, this has never happened. She goes, it's now a thing. And when Randy tells you it's a thing, it means it's a thing.
So can you get, so let's say I do a non-union commercial. Am I going to get residuals?
No, of course not. You're non-union.
It's paid, and they're saving money.
And this is what's, that's right. I mean, in the companies that are going non-union, it's ridiculous. These are like multi-billion-dollar companies.
IHOP.
And you're like, really? You have enough money.
Just so they can pack their pockets more with, what about us,
Well, I mean, that's kind of the method of the day right now.
I still love you, IHOP. Chocolate chip pancakes are the bomb.
Aren't they IHOB right now?
They're calling them some IHOB,
burgers,
which I don't acknowledge this burger.
And believe me, when we got those free pancakes, Pat, we're still paying for them, man.
Yeah.
I wept when to me, the interesting thing is that they can go non-union. I mean, that's weird, but we're not living in a world without Toys R Us or anything else,
Oh.
By the way, how hard that hit you with three little girls?
Three little girls. I have to say, I hated going into Toys R Us toward the end because it got super crowded and they were packing everything in there. You couldn't find things very easily. There was no customer service.
None.
So I'm one of those people that when I needed something, I went on Amazon.
Wow.
I hate to say that.
Is that what killed
That's what killed they called it showrooming.
Yeah.
Where she would go looking for what her daughters wanted, would take a picture of it so she could buy it on Amazon later. But this is the thing with Toys R Us. I mean, we talked about this on the show. Most Toys R Us were in the same parking lot as Marshalls or Ross's, Dress for Less.
Like discount places.
And you would see, I showed Jeff was getting for his nephew or something, he was getting a $39 Spider-Man. It was $39 talking Spider-Man.
That was for me.
And
Forget those kids.
I was trying to cover for you. And we walked across he wanted to buy it at Toys R Us where going out of business, it was only $29.99. I stopped you from buying it. I walked you over to Ross. The $40 figure they had there was $10 next door, and they had like a dozen of them.
Thank you for that, because I got it for $10, and it was still, they were only 15% off or 20%.
Yeah.
I go, how long do we have to be?
It was like the last 2 weeks, and they're bragging about how low the prices are. The fact that when they're going out of business, cut rate prices is still three times more than Ross's Dress for Less. Good riddance.
Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate. I also feel that things shift. There used to be a guy that walked behind horses and cleaned up their poop, and now we have cars.
Yeah, this is true.
So the guy who cleaned up the poop, he needed to learn a new skill. I don't feel like we need to stay especially something that's hurting the environment or whatever. Right. It's like, we develop other jobs and avenues. It's okay.
Eventually the bottom fell out of the buggy whip business.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. And I think Toys R Us had its time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think other things I won't mention because they'll be political have had their time. And if they're going to hurt the environment, we should go back to them.
Right.
That's just my opinion. I think we can move forward. God knows we need more solar energy and things like that. So take your resources and put it into something like that.
Put it where the money is. Yeah. And
well,
I mean,
and where you can create more jobs.
Right.
And help the environment and help the universe. I think that's the best avenue. So do we need any more crap? I mean, I woke up today and I was listening to NPR on the way here, and here we are now. We're in a trade war. With like a legitimate trade war now that's begun. But half that crap, do we need it? Do you know what I'm saying? Like I look at some of that stuff that we actually import and spend all this money to get over here, and it's like plastic and it's filled with whatever, and so it's like
mercury.
Yeah, I'm kind of like, I mean, when I had little kids and they would put everything in their mouth, you were always warned, like if it's from China, be really careful.
Yeah, because they were using lead paint on all the toys for kids.
Yeah,
you know. I remember I write for a bunch of comic-centered magazines.
Right.
They put out a Batman line where they were using lead paint on all the figures. And like 3-year-olds are going to put this Batmobile in their mouth.
They put everything in their mouth. Yep. So, I mean, I feel like stuff kind of works itself out. Like maybe Toys R Us needed to go under because so much of that stuff was imported, and that's why it was jacked up so high too, right?
Yeah.
A lot of it was not made here, not providing jobs, taking jobs away from Americans, and it was crap.
Yeah.
So, you know, I don't know. It's probably not a very... it's not a very popular opinion, but
I was seeing
Kristin Towers for Congress.
people have said that.
Wow.
I was seeing the $19 1999 action figure, the adult collectible ones like Walking Dead stuff and whatever, and
which were never meant to be opened. You know what I mean?
yeah, not to be old. I saw them go down as low as like $4.
$3.
$3, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I also feel like we have a lot of unnecessary things, and so maybe it is a bit, you know, we had a really big recession, the Great Recession. Maybe it was kind of time to look at what's more necessary, and so I feel like that might have affected it too. I don't like to see businesses go under, especially businesses I'm, you know, emotionally, mentally tied to for my memories.
Did you see those pictures? They actually have the Jeffrey Giraffe.
I know, with a little suitcase.
Suitcase bagging his bag.
Well, the great thing is when there was a huge Toys R Us in Santa Monica by you.
Yes.
And I was so happy when that went out of business because you had that underground parking garage. So it was full of junkies and homeless people.
Yeah.
But if you had like a Hollywood, if there was like a post-screening party at like the Horse and Hound, what was that bar? With all these guys would take their chances. We would drive into the Toys R Us parking garage, and there's literally junkies skitzing in front of your car headlights at night. You would literally jog around them back to your car at like 2 in the morning.
Amazing.
Free parking in Santa Monica. I couldn't believe
we
my
still
good
have
fortune.
it. We still have pretty decent free parking in Santa Monica. They've made it pretty friendly, and we have the metro that goes there now.
The amazing thing about the metro is I was up for a commercial.
Yeah.
And the metro had blocked off every other street. They were going to tear down my favorite Norms, which was the one in Santa Monica.
And they did.
Boo.
It's now a Mel's Diner.
It's Mel's Diner.
Yeah.
Erzatz, fake.
Fake, man.
No way, man. It's the Steak and Shake for me.
Steak and Shake.
Steak and Shake.
We went there before we went to the Ruskin Theater.
Remember that?
I think the only Norms in LA now is the one on La Cienega.
Which, by the way, might be the original Norms.
I think it is.
You know?
Yep.
Wow, my friend, she did an episode of Entourage in that parking lot with the horse.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I'm sad about Norms. That was actually my grandmother's favorite restaurant.
The great Catherine Grayson Norms?
That was her favorite restaurant. She would and I mean, she could have gone anywhere. And she really loved, she was very down home. She was born in North Carolina.
So she called everyone Hun.
That's where my family is right
So
now.
she called everyone Hun.
No, she left there when she was a child and went to St. Louis, and somebody heard her singing, and that's how she got she was actually MGM's answer to Deanna Durbin.
Wow.
Because Deanna Durbin had saved Universal from bankruptcy.
Yes. That and the monsters.
Yes. And so they saw this beautiful, my grandmother was stunningly beautiful, and she had this beautiful soprano voice. Sounded
Was she
similar.
redhead?
No, she had dark hair, very pale skin, very beautiful.
There's a shock. You come by it honestly.
Yeah, well, thank you. But she was truly stunning. And so somebody heard her, and at 15, she signed her contract to be a leading player at MGM. And her first movie was called Seven Sweethearts, and actually her sister was in that with her. Was one of her sisters in the film.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
So back in those days, they were in contracts with the studio to make any picture, whatever production.
Yeah, that was called the studio system.
The studio.
Yeah.
No, were your grandmother's memories of that time mostly positive? Because there was a lot of skeevy stuff too.
She had her stories, but mostly positive. It was, it was a time where like having a beautiful voice, and being kind of old-fashioned and lovely was revered, and now it's looked down upon. Mm-hmm. So I think later in life, she would watch what women were kind of being forced to do on film, and how the turn that musicals took into more brassy, harsh. She really valued that time that she got to be in film, where she got to sing beautiful music and Mozart, and that was her thing. She hated rock. She hated anything modern. Hated it.
So she was a shrew.
She was definitely a shrew about music. Wow. She was a snob about it, because she had all this classical training and she could sing. She had a 5-octave range. And,
oh wow!
Yeah, she was incredible. So.
Did she ever get to see you perform?
Oh yeah. Oh. Yeah, the night I opened the national tour of Mikado with my father, we did it at the Norris Theater in Palos Verdes. Wow. And they have this balcony, and she was sitting in this like star chair, and they put the spotlight on her, and it was really It was really
so
cool.
then a moment before the show to introduce her. Wow.
Guest of honor.
That's right. It was really neat. And
don't embarrass little Kristin in front of grandma kind of thing.
She was... I was very different from her. I look different from her. My talents are different. I sound like her a bit because I'm a soprano, but I was much more musical comedy. And so she didn't always love what I did because I was more brassy than she would have liked, and I was more, I can swear, and these are things you never did. And she was part of that studio system where you just kind of like, you were pretty and you were told where to go and what to do. They changed her name. Her name was Zelma Hedrick.
Wow.
Yeah. So she
that sounds more like a porn name.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
And then her
Sorry.
No, it's true. And then her mother's maiden name was Gray. So that's how her middle name was Catherine. So she took Catherine and then put Grayson.
Wow, interesting. Yeah. That was a big thing in the changing the names like that. I mean,
they all changed their names. And her best friend was like Ann Miller, and
I was wondering because she always had an Ann Miller vibe to her.
And they did a lot of movies together. They did Kiss Me Kate together, and Ann Miller was a really good friend of my family. So, and Gene Kelly, and I had the craziest Christmases. Like I'd show up at the house as a kid and there'd be Ann Miller and Gene Kelly just like eating turkey, I just had a weird childhood.
Did you know Gene Nelson at all from Oklahoma?
No, I didn't know Gene.
Wow. Interesting.
Yeah, but I knew
Mickey Rooney?
But but I did.
My friend Jason's on. He's a martial arts guy, but he's a natural redhead.
Oh, cool! My ginger brother.
How you doing, Jason? We need you on our show too.
Yeah, come on our show, Jason.
Not right now, Jason. It's Hot Chick Friday, and you wouldn't fit. You just wouldn't fit on Hot Chick Friday, Jason. No offense.
I can't believe I'm fitting in on Hot
Holy
Chick
hell!
Friday.
No,
Well,
you're
that's
wonderful on
very
Hot
sweet
Chick
of you.
Friday.
Well,
No, very sweet of you. Thank you for. And you beat us to the studio, and we're 6 minutes away. That's tragic.
I left my house at 5:30. I think I fell asleep at 4.
Wow.
So I'm doing pretty well. I didn't know we were going to speak for 2 hours.
Wow.
Oh, yeah,
well, don't worry. We're entering the last 5 fun-filled minutes, and we're going to have you pimp everything you have coming up and where we can follow you.
We got a performance tomorrow night.
Yeah.
Yes, I do. So I am doing right now All My Sons at the Group Rep, which is in North Hollywood on Burbank Boulevard.
Oh.
It is a lovely theater. I'm doing it in the upstairs space, which is a little more intimate. It's got air conditioning, very important for this weekend. So I play Anne in that. The show this weekend is Saturday at 2 p.m. and Sunday at 7 p.m. We're running in rep with another show downstairs, which is Rumors, Neil Simon's Rumors. So you get a zany comedy downstairs and you get a heartfelt drama upstairs.
So you can cry upstairs and laugh downstairs.
Yes. And then I'm a part of a group called the Bombshells.
Hubba.
Yes, and
see, you come by it honestly. Go on.
Thank you. And I'm one of 5 women, and we do a bunch of musical theater and pop songs. And we're gonna start traveling soon, so I just filmed that. And then we filmed like a kind of like a sizzle reel for it, so it can be sold to different theaters, and we're going to be like going to Europe and stuff. So it's really neat. And then I'm directing a show called Scarlet Letter the Musical.
Wow.
And I'm doing that at the Greenway Court Theater. That's written.
Oh, that's over in by UCLA.
It's actually right behind Fairfax High School.
Oh, seriously?
It's on Fairfax, like just a little bit south of Melrose.
I was thinking Greenway Street. Sorry.
No, yeah, but this is a really great theater, and it's going to be an invited situation.
Are you going to be in it?
No, I'm directing that one. I was in it before, but it's a non-union production now, so I can't be on the stage.
Will your daughter be
Pearl?
Yay!
Still is playing Pearl in it.
So your daughter will be playing Pearl.
Yeah, she's been playing Pearl the whole time. We were cast at the same time. I did not cast her. She comes with the gig, and that is written. That's written by Christopher Raymond. He wrote the music and adapted the Nathaniel Hawthorne.
Thank you.
Book. And it's
my English major degree would not allow you to.
And it's produced by Ken Werther, who's a big PR guy in Hollywood. He's been around forever, and he's lovely. We just cast our remaining people the other night for that, and then I was just cast in a show, and I guess I can talk about it.
Sure.
I was cast in Romeo and Juliet at Group Rep. I'm going to be playing Rosalind, who is never seen normally, and they're making me do. It's like 1940s, and it's a nightclub, and she's a singer.
Really?
And and so I get to sing 2 songs, and there's a dance number and stuff, so I'm really excited about it. So that's my next gig, and then I'm doing the show Laundry and Bourbon, which is an amazing play. I'm doing that in January, also at Group Rep. I've been doing a lot of work there.
Is that kind of film noir? Laundry and
Bourbon it's a 1-act, and it partners with another show called Lone Star. So the 1-act Laundry and Bourbon is the women's perspective, and Lone Star is the men's perspective. It takes place in like right after Vietnam in Texas. In the 70s.
What is it about you that keep putting you in Vietnam?
I know, right? I know, it's funny. So yeah, I've got a lot of stuff coming up, and my daughters are all working, and my dad, and so, yeah.
I'm going to interview your dad.
Yes.
Is there any way you could bring your dad on the show?
Yeah, absolutely. Or you guys are coming out.
We'll come see him.
We would love to have him in the studio.
100%.
Quick question, though. Where can we follow you? Where can people follow you?
So I'm on Facebook at Kristin Towers Rowles, actress director. I'm also on Facebook normally, and then I have a website. It's KristinTowersRolls.com, and there's a slash in there, and then I'm on Instagram and Twitter at KT Rowles. So it's KTROWLES.
Wow.
Yeah.
Hey, you were an amazing guest. Your
Thank
stories
you.
were terrific.
Yeah.
Thank you
for
so
having
much.
me.
See how fast 2 hours goes by.
You rocked Hot Chick Friday. I saw you. What I loved, I couldn't say because I've been on the air for 2 hours, but she had this panicked animal look at the clock at about 7:58, and she's thinking they're not stopping.
No, it's just because I have low blood sugar, so I was like, I need to eat, but that's all. I'm going to go eat now.
Would you like us to take you to our bagel?
New York Bagels?
I think so.
We demand it.
Go there.
Yeah.
I need to get some money from that guy anyway.
Thank you. Thanks
Kristin,
for watching today. If you
Thank
have.
you for
Kristin
watching.
Towers, you are delightful. Thank you so much. Everyone have a great weekend.
And next week, we have Instagram sensation Brandy Horvixen. She's going to be on Wednesday. And then
she'll be cool.
Mary Dallas from Barbie Rehab on Thursday.
Oh, Mary Dallas is
Very
coming back. Cool.
Yeah.
All right, you're the queen of Hot Chick Friday. Let's do something about that blood sugar.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you,
Have
everybody.
a great weekend.
Have a good weekend.
Have a good weekend.
And we'll see you next Wednesday on the Jeff and Janki Show. Goodbye.
Bye.
Booyah. But the live feed is going.